All right, welcome. This is Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into this show. Show this out, show this out, show this out. It's Friday, the Law of One, 3 p.m. Boy, I tell you what, today I've been running around like crazy. My sister came over, so I cooked up a weekend breakfast of pancakes, eggs, and bacon. We had a brunch, and then we were hanging out. I wasn't on the computer all day until 2 o'clock. She left. So about 10 or 15 minutes after 2, I got on. My computer's totally out of whack for whatever reason. I'm on it every day. Today it decided that it was needing to have all kinds of stuff happening to it. I searched for an update on the programming. It said no update. So I went ahead and started getting ready for the show. 15 minutes ago, it said there was an update. And now my camera's not working. So I'm not quite sure what's going on. I don't need my camera to do the show, but I'm going to have to actually hook up an external camera. Good thing I have like 4 of those because of working on my base computer doing the show before I bought the laptop. This laptop is only a year old, maybe 2 years. I think I bought it last year, but it could have been 2 years ago now. I bought it for my birthday. So if that's the case, it's not even a year old. And the camera just turned off. And I thought, what did I do? So I tried to run a diagnostic on that. And it says the camera's fine, but it's just not on. It's not turning on. So I have external cameras that I can hook up, but all of this happened literally 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes before I was supposed to go live. Isn't that hilarious? I can run the whole entire thing on my phone. So I wasn't panicked. I was just laughing at the computer trying to do that because I've done that before where if I do a webinar, I have my phone sitting with me logged in the background into the studio in case something happens and the Wi-Fi goes down. My phone is on 5G, that doesn't go down unless 5G goes down. That takes a military aircraft to fly over and jam the signal. So I've had that happen where my computer dumped before and the internet went down, and I just jump on my phone and run the show from my phone. The only problem is that the file for the Law of One is not on my phone. It's on this computer. Right? So I would have to talk, which I talk anyway most of the time, right? Okay, so no. It's surprisingly, Mel, being asked, did you happen to have lightning and thunder happen? No. Surprisingly, we did have a few days ago. We did have a tropical storm come through. But that's possible then. But we didn't get any rain. We just got clouds. So we didn't have any thunder. We didn't have any lightning where I'm at right here. We just had some cloud cover go over. But who knows? That's entirely possible. However, I have my phone hooked up to, or my computer always plugged into, surge protectors just in case something like that could happen. But you never know with static electricity, right? So who knows with technology? My camera right now is just it's actually showing a lock symbol instead of, because it's turned on and the light's on, but it's just not on. And when I change it to a different program, like my camera or whatever, the camera's just not coming on. So I don't know what happened. Something happened since Monday when I used it on Monday until today. And the only thing affected was my camera. Okay. Not that I use it anyway for the show, so it doesn't matter. But if I do any other interviews where other people want to interview me, they want to see me, I'll just have to do it on my phone or go on my other computer. I have a base computer that I can use. I just have to hook a microphone up to that and put it on my lapel. Or I put on a headset with a microphone. That's it, right? And I use an external camera for that as it is because that doesn't have a camera. So I have like 3 external cameras, including a GoPro or ProGo, however you say it. I just don't have it hooked to the laptop. I can literally hook my 2 of them. One I can set next to my laptop. So I'm not tripping. I have cameras. But it was just everything happened. It was like the perfect storm was happening all at once, right? No, I agree. Mel said curious what made the thunder last so long. It was bizarre. It depends on where you are on the United States. There was a tropical storm that came up through Mexico as a hurricane and became a tropical storm that literally went up the entire west coast of the United States into Canada. But it also kind of shot across. And then the storms that were coming down from Canada shot across the United States. That's normal. The hurricanes and tropical storms come up from the south at this time of the year. If you're anywhere in the south, You'll know about that. I lived in Arizona, and this time of year is the monsoon season for Arizona, Texas, New Mexico, Southern California. So if you're in the west or the southwest of America, this is normal. If you're in the somewhere else in North America, it comes down from the north and shoots across. But if you're over in Australia, it's that time of year, but I don't know what your weather patterns are there in Australia at this time of year. But I think you guys are winter, so you guys have winter storms, and I'm not sure what the weather patterns are. Hi, Denise, welcome. So it's just a perfect storm. Weird stuff happening here. We're at the end of summer over here in California. Some would say in the dark days. Then they start blaming things on foreigners. If you're in the United States, I don't know how you guys, your people in your country describes things, but if you're in the United States, everything gets blamed on foreigners in the United States. If the summer goes too long, they call it an Indian summer. So it's blamed on Native Americans. This is a Native American summer. This is an Indian summer. And then they I don't know which the designation is, but one, if there's rains and tornadoes, it's one. Then we use Spanish words, Mexican words. It's the little boy. It's boy, little boy, or the boy or the girl. That's where you have El Nino or La Nina. So it's either Native Americans or Mexican boys and girls that are responsible for our weather, and our weather is called that. Of course, we name hurricanes after people. I've never had one for whatever reason in my lifetime. I've never heard of a Hurricane Leonard. I'm kind of annoyed with that everybody else, we just had a Hillary there was, every time I heard that word, Hurricane Hillary, that was the one that came here to California, up through Mexico and up into California, which was a tropical storm by the time it hit San Diego. And so it was nothing but a tropical storm, downgraded to a storm, but it hit mostly Southern California, Nevada, Vegas, Reno, and went up that way through the United States. But yeah, they blame everything on foreigners in this country. So I don't know what they do in your country over there. Do they blame it on Americans? Do they call it little boy and little girl and just use English, or do they call it das Kind? And use German Dutch words, right? Das Kind. It is das Kind summer. Who knows what they do, but I would be surprised to find out. So wherever you are in whatever part of the world, text me or message me and tell me if they blame it on foreigners. Like here in America, when people would cuss, they would say, "Pardon my French." And so I don't use that vernacular. When I cuss, I say, "Pardon my American." When I do that. So I wonder what they say in your country. When someone cusses, do they say, "Pardon my American, pardon my German, pardon my Russian"? Because here in America, we blame everybody that's a foreigner for everything. When we do something, nothing is ever taken credit for. It's always the boy, the girl in Spanish, or a Native American summer. It's an hot Indian summer. Anyway, I just found that hilarious that we do that in this country. And I'm sure that's the same way around the world. You always blame somebody else. In this country, if someone acts like a coward, people call them French, and because the French were known for not spending their lives to defend their land, they would just pull back and hide and then fight a war, which is actually smarter because then you actually pull your resources. Everybody gets together in a resistance, and then you retake your land when you're organized. Instead of trying to fight land, and destroy your entire land, because that's what they do. If you defend it, they bomb it. Look what's going on over in Ukraine right now. The Russians are bombing out all of their cities. If they would allow the Russians to take control and then attack the Russians, the Russians wouldn't bomb the cities because their own troops would be in it. Right? That's the French. So people who are very low vibration minded, very soldier-like minded, sees that as a cowardice. And a lot of people gave the French a hard time for doing that. And look, there is still a France. So apparently it's worked, right? Without having to call for military aid and have all these people come in, they've retaken their country and then, had people help them, but they also kept it intact instead of blowing it to nothingness and having to rebuild. And sometimes they would burn their own stuff and leave. But That way they wouldn't give any, I don't want to get into military tactics, but those of you who are tacticians, and I am a tactician, I don't see that as cowardice in any way. I see that as a hasty retreat, and also not leaving anything for your enemy to use. So the enemy has to then have all of their shit imported. They need all the food, they need gas, they need oil, they need everything, ammunition, tools, weapons, all of that has to come through their own supply chain. So if you take that all away from them and not let them live off the land that you have and get rid of all that and take it with you and then burn everything out, they have nothing. And therefore, all you have to do is cut off their supply chain and you can starve out an enemy. That's a great idea. They call that a pincer move or a horned maneuver back in the old days. And that was something that people did as a standard until the 21st century or the 20th century, early, probably more the 19th century when we started getting technology. And then all of a sudden it was line up across from each other and lob projectiles at each other until nobody was standing. So it was just fodder. Use the slaves, put them out there, let them kill each other. And that was the warfare for a couple hundred years until people got tired of it and stopped doing it. And so now the warfare has gone back to guerrilla tactics. So as a tactician, those of us who have military training, and we look at that and say, why not do that? So in America, the reason America is here is because they learned how to fight a guerrilla war from the Native Americans who fought that way, and they were able to defeat the English. If you want to watch a movie to show the absurdity of that, watch the movie The Patriot, where it's talked about there with going toe-to-toe with a superior force. But it continued even during the Civil War in this country, which is hideous. When I looked at that, even in high school, I said, "Why don't they just hide and fight?" Well, because that was not the way war was fought. And I'm like, but that's the way you just lose, because whoever has the bigger army will always win, and whoever can get their troops to be good shots or not run away will always win. And that's why the English stormed across the world, because of the English resolve. So you got to give them some credit for hundreds of years, if not thousands of years of warfare, where they convinced the rest of the world, try to go toe to toe with us. And the English, as a whole nation, trained their men to stand and fight until the last man, knowing that they were probably going to die. And good on to them for doing that, because it worked. And until everybody in the world got tired of fighting that kind of warfare, they dominated the planet. And then when people said, fuck that, we're not doing it anymore, and started going back to the way of the Native Americans or the Vikings, then all of a sudden, oh, guess what? You don't have to lose 3/4 of your population of men between the ages of 12 and 37 or 12 and 50. You can actually keep them alive and do a lot more damage and freak them out. Right? And it wins. And then they pay people like the Irish Republican Army to train terrorist organizations for them, so they can pretend to have an enemy that all of you pay them money for to fight against, when they're the ones who financed that enemy and are continuing to do so. To this day. You read about that in my book. Okay. So I don't know where we were. I didn't have time. Unfortunately, I was trying to figure out where we were in the session. I don't remember if we finished and we were starting the new session. I think that's what we did. So if I'm starting over, I apologize. I literally did not have time with all the stuff. That's why I told that story. That's why I spent 15 minutes now talking about it. To find out exactly where we were, where we finished off. I think we finished the other session. I don't remember if we started this one. So I apologize, because we're going to start this session that I have over today. So if we're covering ground that I covered last week, I do apologize for that, right? So, okay. So I'm not reading the chat. I see you guys are having a conversation there in the chat. So we'll get started there, but I do want to announce, some of you already know this because you were in the chat when I announced it. I do have an announcement to make. Just the other day, day before yesterday now, geez, I don't even remember what day, Wednesday, today's Friday. So 2 days ago, I submitted my book, my manuscript, to my publisher to publish my book. So I got the ball rolling. They have all of my information, and I have to do the cover still. I gave them the description for the back of the book and the insert on the hardcover. I still have to create the cover of the book, front cover, back cover. However, I've done everything else and gave them my manuscript, including the title of my up and coming book. It is now titled, and it is going to be out by Christmas, hopefully in November. It's 60 to 90 days from the time you get the manuscript to a publisher before you hit the market. So I literally was Wednesday. So count from there 60 or 90 days from there. So that's, at the end of August. So September, October, November. So at the latest, it'll be the end of November. At the earliest, it'll be the first week or second week of November. So somewhere in November, before December, hopefully, unless we have some issues, it'll be out. So my book will be out hopefully before Christmas. I would like to get it out in 2 months. We'll see what happens. And it is titled, The Reality About Reality, subtitle, Returning to the Old Ways. Okay. That is my book that is going to be out later this year, which will be my fourth book, but it'll be my first one on spirituality. Okay, so we're going to start. I apologize. I'll have to look at your chat now and see what you guys were talking about, right? Penny, thank you. So yeah, I'll let you guys know as soon as it's out. I'm sure I'll be talking about it and showing it and seeing pictures of it. And then I'll be doing interviews, and I know that I'll be promoting it. It's going to be in Barnes and Noble, Amazon. I forgot where else they told me. It's going to be at 100 media outlets. So it's cost me a lot of money to publish it. I'm at $4,000 right now that I went into Hawk on my credit cards to get it published, and who knows what they'll add. That includes this time I'm having it edited, but I approve everything. So it's going to be pretty badass, guys. And I'm going to be doing giveaways once I get the book published. I will be doing shows, and I will be giving away free copies. Or a voucher that you can mail back to my publisher, who will then send you a copy. That way it's cheaper for me. I don't have to pay you for the shipping for the book itself. It comes out of my publisher. It's part of the package that I paid for. So I will be doing that. And in the future, there will be shows where I will be giving away a couple of free books on the shows. So I'm announcing all of that now, and then you'll forget about it. And then during Christmas, around that time, I'll be running around doing that kind of stuff. So it'll be kind of cool. Okay, guys. So I'm going to give you a sound check now on the Law of One. We are on this session, which I believe is session 22 or 23. Let me know how the sound is, and we'll go from there. Okay. So let me go ahead and start with this session here. Give me a sound check.
February 11th, 1981. 23.0 Ra, I am Ra. I greet you in the love and the light of the infinite creator. We communicate now. 23.1 Questioner, you were speaking yesterday of the first contact made by the Confederation which occurred during our third major cycle.
Yeah, see, we did start this, so I don't know how far we got. I remember this now. Thank you, Cassie, that it sounds good. Thank you for being here too, with everything that you're going through right now. I love you, my sister, for taking the time to come in right now. You're dealing with a lot of issues with friends and grief, and so you're here. That's crazy. I love you for it. that you've come here only a few days after losing a really good friend. Play this for the kids. Maybe they'll like me. I don't know. I'm just saying, right? So love you for being here. Energy. Love to you and the family over there. Okay, so let's continue with the Law of One, and because I don't know how far we got last time. Hopefully, I'm not redoing the entire session, right? And that we got a long ways. But knowing me, the way I talk, I'm sure we only got a few questions in. All right, let's continue.
Stated that you appeared in the skies over Egypt at the same time, approximately.
Well, Maddie, you're here now, so welcome, right? And you're never required to be here in my shows, or Maddie said I've missed so much of the Law of One, not been around for a while. That is okay. You're exactly on time, because like I love that Gandalf, when he was Gandalf the Grey in Lord of the Rings, when he first appears. And Bilbo says to him, or was it Frodo? It was Bilbo. And he says, Gandalf, you are late. And he says, a wizard is never late. He arrives precisely when he's meant to. So, Maddie, you're not late. You haven't missed anything. You have arrived precisely when you were meant to. Right? Well, thank you. Cassie said, I just happened to be taking a break. And my alert came on, so bang, then she came in. And well, thank you for that. You're not required. No one's required to stay, right? yeah, I see. I don't know who that is. It's check 12 check. I don't know who that is. I can see it says Facebook user for me. So you're on the other channel that I'm live on, and for some reason it's not showing me your name, but I see you there. And that's why you say there's only one person here. That's because you're on either over in the returning to the old ways live. You're in that chat. Or you're or the opposite, and everyone else is in returning to the old ways chat, and you are on the chat for the law of one. Unfortunately, that's what happens. So you can't see anyone else, and they can't see you. But I can see you, but I don't know who you are because it's Rick. Hi, Rick. So wherever you are, Rick, you're in the opposite of where everybody else is, but you are in the chat here. Now that you told me who it was, I can see that it's you, but you probably can't see anyone else. You can't see Cassie, you can't see Peter, you can't see Denise, you can't see Mel, because they're all so somebody Penny, you guys are all in the same group wherever you're at. So maybe guys share that link into the chat so Rick can get into the same one so he can see your comments. Or Rick, move to the other one. I don't know, brother. I love you. I'm glad you're here, though. All right, so let's go ahead and continue with the law of one.
Aid was first given to Atlantis. Can you tell me why you went to Egypt and your, shall we say, orientation of attitude and thinking when you first went to Egypt? Ra.
Thank you, Penny. Okay, so Rick, Penny says everybody's in the Orion Rising page. So go to that. There he is. He's in there now. No, he's not. He'll get there. So yeah, she's tagging you. Rick, here, right? So Cassie's tagging you. So yeah, Rick, jump over to the Law of One chat, or somebody link that thing into the chat over on Law of One chat in the class chat. That way he can find it and come in there. That's hilarious. He's like, "Where is everybody? I'm the only one here." There he is. Well, yay! Everybody go, Rick! Like we're in what is that show where everybody was in the bar? You want to go where everybody knows your name, right? And they all are glad you came. What was the name of that show, guys? I can't remember the name of the show. That everybody would walk in, they go, Norm, right? And when they'd come in, what the hell was the name of that show? It was hilarious. Love that show. I can't think of the name of it right now because I'm on spirit. My brain is Cheers. Thank you. Cheers, mate. Cheers was the name of the show, which is, it works across the pond, right? So that's where we got that from over here in America anyway. So yeah, Cheers. That was a great show. Loved it. It was funny as heck. Loved all the characters that were in that. It was so realistic, and that's why it took off, right? I know. I watched Rick says I watched every episode. Me too, and in reruns. Love that show. Great show. Okay, let's continue with the Law of One. See, if I'm on movies and television shows, and that's where my mind is, and I have that hat on, I'll win every trivial pursuit question about movies. Not everyone, unless you're really good at it too. But once I get into where I pull myself to a higher spiritual level, it's hard for me to plug back in that quickly to go to another topic. And so I pull myself up into this conversational area of 4D, 5D. And then it takes sometimes a little bit for me to get back into that. But if I'm in that mode and not out of my head in spirituality, I'm like, bing, 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 bing. And people trip on how quickly I come up with that crap. Like, you need to be on one of these talk shows. I'm like, yeah, it's different. When you're on there, it's all the button that you press. And there's some gimmick to the button. And ask anyone who's ever been one of the people that are on there that have ever won. They'll tell you that the hardest thing is getting the button to work before everyone else. Everyone knows the answer almost identically at the same time, but bringing in is the key to all of those game shows. So it has nothing to do with your knowledge and how quick your brain works, although it does, because if your brain works faster than everyone else, you're going to hit the button first. But if your brain works just as fast, or everyone else's brain works just as fast as yours, and most of the time the brainiacs are, they all work at the same rate of speed because your synapses fire. If you have more glia cells, I'm not going to get involved in all that, but the more ganglia cells you have, the faster you can bring up information. So once you have a certain amount of those, it doesn't really matter. You're not going to be a nanosecond faster than someone else. It's just telling your brain to tell your finger to hit the button at the right time. And those guys will tell you that there's a gimmick. There's a certain way to the button that you press. You time the answer. You figure out the answer before the person stops talking, and then you time it to when their speech goes silent. The second, because they have a timer that doesn't let you time in on most of the shows until then. So your thing doesn't work. So some of them start pumping it prior, some of them wait. And because if you start pumping it prior, it won't register. So you have to get down the timing with the computer allowing you to punch in first. So it doesn't have as much to do with actual knowledge as it does with you being able to have the knowledge in a timely manner, but be able to punch in and alert the computer faster. So it's kind of gimmicky. And anybody who's ever been on the show, they'll tell you that the key is learning how to and when to hit the button. So you should, if you're smart, you should be able to figure out the answer prior to them finishing the question. And if you don't, then you're not going to win anyway, because your brain doesn't move fast enough. So if you already know the answer within seconds before you and then you would have a good shot. That's how you gauge. If you already know, but then you got to figure out that timing with the button. So if you have a way to practice and figure out the timing with the button, and the only way you can do that is to get selected and get on the show. But if you can figure that out really quickly, those who adapt fast, those are the ones who are smart enough to go further in the show. Anyway, sorry, that's my nerd coming out and explaining what I've learned from people who have been on the show that I've talked to on Jeopardy and other game shows where you have to push a button to answer the question and racing against other humans. Okay, let's continue here.
I am Ra. At the time of which you speak, there were those who chose to worship the hawk-headed sun god, which you know as vibrational sound complex, Horus. This vibrational sound complex has taken other vibrational sound complexes, the object of worship being the sun disk represented in some distortion. We were drawn to spend some time, as you would call it, scanning the peoples for a serious interest amounting to a seeking with which we might help without infringement.
Right. So Maddie was talking about in there, talking about the fulfillment of dogs. Yes. And the answer that Denise gave you was absolutely true. Unconditional love. They dogs do not, cats, pets, they do not question you. They don't have an ego. They haven't developed that yet. So they love you unconditionally. They love you with their heart. And they love every part of you. They love everything about you. And they feel you. They're tuned into you more than you realize because they can't talk. So they don't judge you. They don't question you. They just love you. And that's why the animals are so comforting to us, because they are just open book. Completely. It's not until you become a human that you end up closing everything off and being taught by society to hide all of your emotions and hide your every imperfection and always be strong and be a soldier and a warrior, whether you're a man or a woman. These days, you're being taught that. So because they want soldiers, they want automatons. They don't want you being human, because to be human means you're going to learn something and ascend. That's part of my book that's coming out, is just that. We need to learn more from nature, and that's why they don't want you learning about nature. They don't want you learning about history, because history shows our mistakes. History shows the atrocities, and learning about nature shows unconditional love of nature, because everything outside of humans just is, and they are full of love, and they are not in any way evil. Evil is a choice that humans have. Okay, so that means closing off, loving thyself, ignoring people, using people, abusing people, manipulating people. Those are human things. That's third dimension. That's why I'm talking. That's why I named my book "The Reality About Reality," because I'm telling you what the real reality is supposed to be, what it really is, and where it went wrong, and how it's gone wrong, and what we're doing wrong on this planet, and how we can fix it. That's what my book is about. All right, let's continue.
We found that at that time the social complex was quite self-contradictory in its so-called religious beliefs, and, therefore, there was not an appropriate calling for our vibration. Thus, at that time, which you know of as approximately 18,000 of your years in your past, we departed without taking action. 23.2 Questioner, you stated yesterday that you appeared in the skies over Egypt at that time. Were the Egyptian entities able to see you in their skies? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. 23.3 Questioner, what did they see, and how did this affect their attitudes? Ra, I am Ra. They saw what you would speak of as crystal-powered bell-shaped craft.
Okay, so we're talking about UFOs, but I wanted to address what Maddie was saying. Yeah, Maddie, you're absolutely right. Dogs, they sense that part of you. They know when you start becoming anxious. And they know when you start becoming depressed. They know when you're starting to have some rough times, and of course the opposite when you're doing very well. So they learn because they already are in tuned, empathically to because that's how they communicate. So they learn to pay attention to us, and because they love us unconditionally, they will react. And once they realize, and they're taught when they're in these schools to be a service animal, they're taught to recognize those things in us and help us in every way they can to function better. So Maddie said, talking to Rick, when he said, Rick, I strongly advise that you get one, talking about a dog. If you want, he says, I'm a serving soldier, been through a hell of a lot, had a lot to get to go. Had a lot. Sorry, you guys are talking in the chat. It's moving my chat while I'm trying to talk. Had to let go of a lot, and my dog has helped me do that. Absolutely. I had a friend who just passed, who was also a vet, was over in Iraq during the Gulf War. I don't know if you guys are old enough to remember when those Marines were up in the tower and they were stuck in the tower and surrounded by the Taliban or the military of Iraq and being shot at. And they were stuck up there for a few days. My buddy was one of the guys who went against orders and punched their way through to get those men out, to get those Marines out. He got into some trouble for doing it, but then, of course, got an award for a medal because they didn't die. And they were able to get those Marines out safely. And a newscaster who was up in the tower stuck with them. But he came back from there and had a lot of problems because of the air he breathed. He had parasites in his lungs from and problems with a cyst in his neck and all kinds of shit. Eventually got him. He died this last February. He had a service dog for years, Maddie, and he had all kinds of problems because of being over there at the time he was. And he was an explosives handler at a military base prior to and afterwards. So he was one of the guys that built and shipped all of the ordnance. So he had to deal with that, knowing that he was responsible for bombs and missiles and grenades and ammunition that he put together and shipped to kill people around the world. So not only was he there in the fight, but he also had that on his mind as well, that he said there'll probably be military weapons, bombs, missiles, and bullets that'll kill people long after I'm dead, that I'm the one who actually put together to make sure that they would work or built while I was in the military for companies or the military as a private contractor for the military to be able to kill people. So he had to deal with that as well. So I get you, brother. I get you. I can't relate because I wasn't in that kind of combat. I worked for the Secret Service, so I wasn't actually in the field doing stuff like that. I was doing other crazier spycraft shit that is still bad enough, and I have been tortured. I was never tortured by the Chinese military because that didn't happen. It was a non-incident. But I get you, and animals, especially dogs, do a lot of great work. So those of you out there in the world hearing my voice, wherever you are on the planet, if you've ever served in any capacity or been through any kind of anything, traumas that have happened to you, but combat especially, get a dog, get a service animal. That service animal will help you in ways you have no idea how much that will help you. Okay, so I apologize for going off on that tangent, but I couldn't help because Maddie talked about that just then, and that triggered that in me, that response in me to go down that road. So I felt like it was something that was necessary to talk about. So I apologize if some of you just tuned in and you're like, what the hell is he talking about? He's gone on the road of talking about some freaking dogs. And so I apologize for anybody that I've offended by this. But if you're out there and you're listening to this and you've ever been in the shit, you understand what I'm talking about. You get it. So, right. So he has a female. He says, Maddie says, I wasn't given her by the Army. I was on sick leave and my friend had a litter. That's okay. That's still, it doesn't matter. Right. So he says, I was ill and my friend gave me a pup. She's a I always say that wrong. Staffordshire Terrier, right? A bull terrier. That's a great dog, right? And my life has changed so much. Agreed, I'll bet, right? I mean, it doesn't matter. They still get it. So those who've had the training, they have a little bit more discipline only, but they're still, the instincts and all of that comes from the breeds, right? My buddy had a golden retriever. Was it a golden? Yeah, it was a golden retriever. No, it was a blonde. It was a blonde retriever. He was a pedigree. And he didn't get them as a service dog, but he had the dog trained. He and I always trained our dogs and had people train them. I knew the police trainer for the San Francisco Bay Area of California who trained all the police dogs. And he was a friend of my mom's because she cut his hair. So I always had him train my dogs, and he gave me all the commands and taught me a lot of stuff about how to train animals. I'm not as good as the professionals, obviously, but I trained all my dogs to be police dogs. That I've had since I was 20. Not a joke, because of that. And they either spoke Dutch or German, and that was it. None of them spoke any English. I had a dog. His name was Wolfgang Amadeus Mozart, and he did not speak English. He only spoke German. And a lovely story about that was that my wife, after we were separated, she knew me at the time when we were dating, and I had that dog, and I taught her the commands. And later in life, she was with her parents, who were elderly at the time. This was probably about 10 years ago now. This person had a retired police dog, a shepherd of some kind. And they saw them outside when they were walking, and the dog broke loose from her owner and came running towards them. And my wife thought, oh no, this dog is going to crash into my parents, and they're elderly in their 60s. They're going to fall down and get hurt or break a hip. And she was scared, and she didn't know what to do. And instinctively, she immediately remembered the only German word she could remember, which was the most important word for a police dog that's been taught, especially German. And she looked at the dog as he was running up, and she yelled, Platz, which means down, sit in German. And she yelled it, and the dog froze, stopped dead, sat down, obedient, and looked up at her. And she remembered, and she said, "Good canine, good canine." And she went over and patted him, and he wagged his tail, and he sat there waiting for her commands. And everybody looked at her, and their jaws dropped. And she says, "You're a good dog." And she was petting him, and they were like, "Oh my God, I thought for sure they were going to knock me down. How did you stop him?" And the lady came running up. "What did you say?" And she said, "My ex-husband knew the trainer who taught police dogs, and he taught his dogs like a police dog. And the only word I could remember was Platz, and it means sit down." To a police dog, they always yell that. It means down now. It stops them from when they're attacking someone, and it stops them when they get too excited. And so she yelled that and gave the finger command up in the air that you give. You don't point at the dog, but you point up in the air when you say it, so that they know you're the one that's talking and you're the one that's in charge, and you don't have to be aggressive in any way. And the dog just boom and sat down, and everybody was so amazed. And she says, "Right, I know. Out of all the things that happened between my husband and I the only word I could remember was Platz, because it was the most important one." And then she explained to him that my dog was trained as a police dog, and that it only spoke German. Isn't that hilarious, right? So remember that if somebody has an ex-police dog, most of them are taught in German or Dutch, and some of them in Svenska, but mostly in German or Dutch. And so you have a 50-50 shot if you yell Platz at the dog that it'll sit down. If it's a retired shepherd, more than likely, if it's a Malamute or a Staffordshire, it might be Dutch. So learn the Dutch word. I don't know what the Dutch word is right now for sit. Even though I'm learning Dutch, I haven't gotten to that word yet. Right? So, right. And what's this? You guys, Cassie, you're talking about that? She's saying, I think you're telling me some words. I don't know my glasses. I don't have to read the chat here while we're going. So let me go ahead and get on to that. So I apologize if we're losing people going, what is he? He's not even talking about the law of one, man. Let me go back to that. We'll continue here. But I wanted to go down that. Now you got me talking about the dogs, Maddie. That's beautiful, though. because dogs are precious and they just love you unconditionally. Cats too, but cats only do it when they want to. I have a cat. I have cats. I'm a cat and a dog person. So that I was talking to my sister about that, because some of us grew up with cats and dogs. Some people are just dogs. Some people are just cats. Some people are both. Some people don't like either. As somebody who doesn't like dogs or cats, there's something wrong with them. I'll almost guarantee you that they're a narcissist. If you don't like cats and dogs, then you don't want them around. I don't like animals. I don't like kids either. That's a narcissist. So you can tell a lot about a person by the animals they keep, the books they keep on them shelves, and how they wear their rings on their fingers. All right, let's continue.
This did not affect them due to their firm conviction that many wondrous things occurred as a normal part of a world, as you would call it, in which many deities had powerful control over supernatural events. 23.4 Questioner, did you have a reason for being visible to them rather than invisible? Ra, I am Ra. This is correct. 23.5 Questioner, can you tell me your reason for being visible to them? Ra, I am Ra. We allowed visibility because...
Right, I love that idea, right? Maddie says, never trust a person who doesn't like dogs, but always trust a dog who doesn't like a person, right? Because they know their judgment. Oh, absolutely. Dogs, always. If a dog barks at somebody, there's something about them that is bothering them. If a dog barks at me and I realize I have on like a hat, ball cap and sunglasses, I'll remove those, because sometimes that triggers them, because somebody who has been mean to them wore a ball cap and glasses, and sometimes they're just overly protective of their parent. But usually, if you remove those kind of items that you're wearing, and then don't yell at them or look mean, then they'll usually change their tune a little bit. Unless they're just untrusting of us, because sometimes people will tell you they don't like this one, doesn't like men, because somebody who's a man. But you have to really trust dogs, though. If you own a dog and that dog likes people, and that dog starts to bark at someone who doesn't like them, don't trust that person. Absolutely. Troy, welcome. Troy said Troy is watching. Welcome, brother. You have to say something, or I don't know you're here. Okay, let's continue. So we're talking about the Law of One and the Ra, who came here, and was they're actually talking about the Atlanteans right now, I think, and that they appeared to them in a physical form. It was a thought form. They weren't physically here, but they generated a hologram that appeared to be just like another human. So in the minds of people, they were seeing someone who looked actually very real. Okay, so that's what they're talking about now. So let's continue.
As it did not make any difference. 23.6 Questioner, I see. Then at this time you did not contact them. Can you tell me the same questions I just asked with respect to your next attempt to contact the Egyptians? Ra, I am Ra. The next attempt was prolonged. It occurred over a period of time. The nexus, or center, of our efforts was a decision upon our parts that there was a sufficient calling to attempt to walk among your peoples as brothers. We laid this plan before the Council of Saturn, offering ourselves as service-oriented wanderers of the type which land directly upon the inner planes without incarnative processes. Thus we emerged, or materialized, in physical-chemical complexes representing as closely as possible our natures, this effort being to appear as brothers and spend a limited amount of time as teachers of the Law of One, for there was never stronger interest in the sun body, and this vibrates in concordance with our particular distortions. We discovered that for each word we could utter, there were 30 impressions we gave by our very being, which confused those entities we had come to serve. After a short period we removed ourselves from these entities and spent much time attempting to understand how best to serve those to whom we had offered ourselves in love/light. The ones who were in contact with that geographical entity, which you know of as Atlantis, had conceived of the potentials for healing by use of the pyramid-shape entities.
Okay, yeah, Rick, I agree with you. Rick said new people in the chat listening into the show this week. That's always good. So if you guys who are new have questions, at any time ask questions, and I will stop and answer your questions. So if you have questions about what Ra's talking about or anything like that, I'm here to interpret this. This is what I'm here to do. I'm here to teach, to interpret to you what Ra was talking about when they came through Carla. Back in between 1981 and 1984 in the 6 books that make up the Law of One. Okay, so if you have any questions about the Law of One or about what's going on in here, what you hear being played, feel free to ask. And then if you have any questions about anything I say, feel free. I am live. I am here to tell you, to talk to you, to teach you. And if you don't know who I am, you should look me up because I have a book that's going to be coming out that you'll know about, because everyone's going to know about it. It'll be hitting the Earth. My fourth book will be hitting the Earth sometime in November or December of this year, unless something insane happens on the planet. Right? Okay, let's continue.
In considering this and making adjustments for the differences in the distortion complexes of the two geographical cultures, as you would call them, we went before the council again, offering this plan to the council as an aid to the healing and the longevity of those in the area you know of as Egypt. In this way we hope to facilitate the learning process as well as offering philosophy articulating the law of one. Again the council approved. Approximately 11,000 of your years ago we entered, by thought form, here we correct this instrument. We sometimes have difficulty due to low vitality. Approximately 8,500 years ago, having considered these concepts carefully, we returned, never having left in thought, to the thought form areas of your vibrational planetary complex and considered for some of your years, as you measure time, how to appropriately build these structures. The first, the Great Pyramid, was formed approximately 6,000 of your years ago. Then, in sequence, after this performing by thought of the building or architecture of the Great Pyramid using the more, shall we say, local or earthly material rather than thought form material to build other pyramidal structures.
Right, so that's why, guys, that the largest pyramid at Giza is of different construction of the other ones. That one was done with thought form, and then the other ones were actually done with their thoughts, but by using materials that were there. So that's just like the Sphinx. When people look at the Sphinx, they say the Sphinx was carved out of one giant slab of sandstone, and that literally everything that is missing in the square block was rubble that they moved from there. So you have to realize that that's what they're talking about here. So not only are they talking about the Atlanteans prior to this, and that question prior to, and working with the Atlanteans, now they're talking about the Egyptians. And they were showing you, I said he in a wrong use of the vernacular, because Ra is an entire species, a hive mind complex, thinking as one. They said the council approved. So they're part of a group of people that came here to assist, and they had to ask permission from the council, because the council was put into place further back into the past because of people getting stuck here on this earth. So there are two different waves that people are unaware of, where people came in to the earth and gave knowledge to people that shouldn't have had that level of knowledge, breaking the prime directive. And because of that, there was a quarantine put on this area of the galaxy, and particularly this Earth. And Ra talks about that. Ra doesn't talk about this quadrant, which I know about, that has a quarantine, because there's not just the Earth. There was 21 or 22 other planets that are third dimensional planets in this sector of the universe that were also affected by this plague, this onslaught of evil people that were trying to take over. They're gone now. People don't know that on this earth. They're just getting used to the idea of thinking that they have some slave owner, which is the narrative that they've been teaching for 10,000 years to convince the people here that they were created by this race of people as a slave race, when they're not. They never were, and they never will be. But if you believe you're a slave, because we are co-creators here, if you believe you're a slave, you become the slave, because you're agreeing to their idea that they're trying to sell you. And they know that. That's how they get around free will. That's what Raw's trying to warn about. I write about that in my book as well. I didn't get that from Raw. I learned this on my own, and was talking about it on the air, and someone said, dude, that's like the law of one. And I said, what is that? That was back in 2017. I said, what is the law of one? And then David Wilcock on the same day talked about the law of one, and I found out that he actually lived with Carla and Dawn at one point, and knew them, and talked about to them about the law of one. Or at least he lived with Carla, because I don't know if he lived with Don, because Don killed himself in the 80s, but I don't know for certain that Wilcock lived while Don was still alive, but I think he did. And then he lived in the house, the grandma house on their property. as well. So he knew them. So he mentioned the law of one on the same day that someone else mentioned it to me and linked it to me. So I was like, I'm going to have to read the law of one. So I read all 6 books. And then that was when I did the first translation of the law of one. And now I'm going back and giving a higher translation, higher vibe translation than the first one that I did back in 2017, 18. And depending on the reality you're in, apparently in this reality, I didn't do it until 2019 and 20. Or 21, but I remember doing it in 17, 18, and 19. So when I shifted into this reality a year ago last May, that timeline changed slightly, and I had started doing the law of one a year later and finished a year later than the memory that I have, which is weird, right? But that just goes with if you're a wanderer, that's part of what I talk about in my book as well. If you're a wanderer and you're awake, you actually notice these time shifts. And that's why we publish them around the world to people. When we find out, we talk to each other and say, hey, this changed. Do you remember that? And they're like, yeah, and this. And then we get together and compile that. And then we put it out to the world and go, if you remember this, and this, then you switched with us at this time. And then we try to identify how many people around the world switched with us at the time that we did, and find out that when we do that, there's not other things that happen. So a lot of people are like, it's CERN, it's the governments, and the United States government is doing something to the timeline. No, it's not, because it's only a certain million or so wanderers that have the memory. And if CERN was doing it, there would be other people who have other memories of other Mandela effects or pockets of them going on in different places, where there's 25,000 that remember this, but not that. Another over here that happens, because they would be screwing with the timeline. That's not what's happening. What's happening is as we are fixing these timelines, as we're fixing this earth and fixing the ley lines, the energy grid of the earth, and putting it back to the way it was 10,000 years ago, that's actually shifting the timelines of this earth away from more and more away from the AI. There are the temporal war that you guys don't know about. Has 2 timelines that are very prevalent in the future. One of which the Hopi Rock legend talks about this. One of which, if you're in Australia, the Aborigines also talk about it. I don't know what they call it, but you can talk to the elders and they'll tell you the same thing. That there are 2 timelines in the future, and one is the destruction, and one is not, and that's the end of the world, but they're both the end of the world as we know it. Just like the REM song, because this way of life that has been created here on the earth is the wrong. It's evil, it's egoic, and it's set up to enhance and enrich evil people. So all of that needs to go away. But it's as alien to you as the idea of a shift in the timelines. So the fact that in your mind, if I said to you right now that we don't need money for anything, and they're lying to you, you'd freak out, because everything costs money. And so how am I supposed to live if I don't have any money? And then you have people that have said, what if everybody decided to stop paying their rent at once? You'll never get that to happen. But if everybody stopped paying their rent at once, they're not going to kick anybody out, because they're not making any money. And they kick everybody out, they're already not making any money. So if they kick everybody out, they're still not going to make any money. And if everyone refuses to pay rent all at once, but that would take a completely different mindset to get the entire population to all do that all at one time. If you do it in one part of a city, like one whole apartment complex, they'll just come in with a bunch of troops and pull your ass out of there, and come in and bulldoze it over, or whatever they have to do. And they have no qualms of doing that. So it's going to take differences of moving things on a completely bigger list, right? So Maddie says, okay, Leo, he's charging me. I said, ask a question. He's like, all right, I got a question. So let me put on my glasses so I can read this and get your question right. Maddie says, okay, Leo, I'm not big on physics, etc. However, I remember asking a while ago about how do you know if you're a wanderer, even though I was in the army. I remember you saying yes because you serve. I saw a psychic just because my, I guess, love was a mess. Life, I think is what you're trying to say there. It came out loaf. My life was a mess. I also started meditating, and she said to me, was the word wonder. As you're trying to say wanderer, wonder. I was completely shocked. So it must mean something. What am I? I meant to do. And then I lost what the rest of it says though. Okay, so all right, so How do you know if you're a wanderer? Okay, so and I did say that, and I would say, well, no, there's a distinction. If you're in service to others, then you've chose to be in service to others. That doesn't necessarily make you a wanderer. That makes you someone who has chosen not to be evil in your soul. So your soul choice is to be in service to others. If you're a wanderer is somebody who's not from here, not from this earth. You didn't grow up here, so you weren't a piece of a grass, a rock, a blade of, a tree, a plant that then graduated from a 1D into 2D to then being some sort of animal life form, fish, bird, cat, dog, and then when you died and became self-aware, you become a human. That's just an indigenous person who's going through the normal stages of ascension. To be a wanderer, you literally are someone who is not. You don't know this because you're veiled, just like all of us are. When you're born here, you're veiled in this 3D reality, but you were already graduated from the third dimension, third density, and you come from a higher plane. You heard the call that this place was stuck and needed help, and then you went to the council and asked if you could come back down here. That's what's called coming here legally, which is what Jesus actually said, those words, "I'm here legally," when he was on the earth. So that's another reason why I say, when the Jews claimed that Jesus was invented by the Romans to control the Jews, how would they know to say, "I came here legally"? There was a lot of things that Jesus said that nobody could interpret as to what he meant. But if you're a wanderer or someone who's awake, you actually get what he means because you have a higher knowledge. So to be a wanderer, you're someone who is, first of all, in service to others, because people who are in service to self never want to volunteer to go backwards and lose the power that they had. So it's very, 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 very rare. I can't say that it never happens ever, because there's always that one in a billion that might return. So a wanderer is someone who did come into this world legally and was born into a body and owns the body they're born into, but their spirit, their soul, is coming from a higher plane of existence, and you're actually lowering your vibration to come into here, to higher and raise the vibration that is here. So, but I do say, usually, if you have in some way been drawn to me, and you are here listening, and you don't think I'm crazy and leave, chances are you're either very close to waking up, or you are in fact a wanderer. I say this because part of my job coming to this earth is I am a beacon to draw. I'm not the only one, so I don't try to think that I'm trying to say I'm some sort of savior. I'm not the only one, but I am one of the people who are beacons, who are here to draw your attention. As a wanderer, you don't know why, but you're drawn to me, and you know what? That guy, just, there's something about him. And if you're about to wake up, but you haven't quite woken up yet, and you are waking up, I'm also will draw your attention, because the words that I say to you will ring true in some way to stimulate you. So just being in service to others doesn't make you a wanderer, but what does is there's other factors. If you don't fit, you don't feel like you fit, you've always felt like you were alone, you don't fit in here, you look around at other people and think that their life seems to be simpler than yours. They don't have like allergic reactions to everything. They don't have problems. They don't have autoimmune diseases. They just seem they can eat anything, and they just fit. Everything just fits for them. They go out in the sun and they get burned, and it just tans and overnight, and everything just seems to work for them here perfectly. And you seem to have problems and struggle with whatever. Your body doesn't seem to work right for you. It doesn't fit right. You seem to struggle a little bit more than other people do. You feel like that. Those things add up, and you will find that when you talk to other wanderers, that other wanderers always have autoimmune issues far above and beyond anyone else. And the doctors are like, we're not quite sure what it is, but you have one of those things that's one person in 18 million gets it. And it's different for each person. The reason that you have those issues, if you have those, is because this body, this flesh pain body that you're in, realizes that your soul is coming from a higher vibration. It's not tuned right. So this pain body is having problems accepting your soul in it. So as you're here, they show you this, like in the movie Michael, where he comes down as an angel into human form, and the longer he's here, he's dying. While he's here, the physical body is breaking down, and he has to go back to being an angel. And his wings are coming off, his feathers are coming off his wings, and he's getting more and more pale, and he seems to be having immune issues. That was beautiful that they did that in that movie. And you should watch that movie. It was a comedy, but it's beautiful how they showed it. The longer he stayed on Earth, the more the vibration here was doing damage to his body, because his immortal soul is an archangel, and he's not supposed to be down here in human form. So he had to leave. And so he stayed here as long as he could. They did the same thing with Starman, the movie with Jeff Bridges back in the 80s in America. You should watch that. He comes down here from a higher vibration, but he's here to study the humans, and he has to take on a human form. And the longer he's in that body, the body's dying because it's breaking down, because his vibration is too high of a vibration to be in there, and he needs to go because he crashed his spaceship. He needs to go to a place where he can be picked up, and that turns out to be the big crater in Arizona. And he has to get there, and he starts in Chemaguen Bay, Wisconsin, and he has to get himself over to Arizona so that his beacon can be lit and his alien friends can come and pick him up and take him home. So he's on this race while the people of the military, of the government of the United States, are trying to capture him. And he's in a race to try and get back to his people, and he's dying. The longer he sits here, and if you watch his character, it becomes very apparent that he's dying. The longer he's here and the more he's exposed to this form. The same thing happens to us in every lifetime. We don't die as quickly as the movies, an hour and a half, 2 hours, a few days, and the character is dying. But we have those issues, and we have to seriously get in tune with our bodies to repair and hold those issues at bay. So we have to wake up faster, and then become awake, and then work on this temple that is the body. However, but I will get back to saying almost the same thing I said to you the first time you asked me that question that you talked about here, is that if you're here, there's a good possibility that you are a wanderer. Otherwise, you wouldn't be staying around listening to me talk. You would immediately go, this guy's a lunatic. He doesn't know what he's talking about. I'm out. And if you're waking up and you're not a wanderer, you're still going to do the same thing. And it doesn't matter the distinction. If you're about to wake up, or you are waking up, or you are a wanderer, you're in the same exact position in your spirituality. You're either awake, or you're waking up, or you're about to. And either way, you're going to be attracted to myself and other people that are like me around the world, until you become your own, into your own light. And then you're going to be able to move on from there, right? So Maddie says, I'm 35 and I've had 2 heart attacks. My first one at 30. That's surely not right? Yeah, no, it's not. And so you have to look into factors like what was wrong with, how did I have those heart attacks? Was it because I ate shit and held at the moon? Did I clog my arteries and did that happen? Or is there just something that's weird about my body that's not working properly? And if that's the case, then you have to tell yourself, you have to come to the conclusion that might mean there might be a good possibility that this soul that is occupying this body is actually one of those souls, because there are billions with a B, billions, multiple, more than 1 billion humans currently right now on this planet. It is literally 50%, and I'm being told that it's higher than that. But other psychics, I'm not the only ones that have said this. Psychics have said this. I was having a reading done by Jamie Watson Wolf, which you guys should really take a look at. She doesn't know yet that hasn't woken up to know that she was on the same bus with me that some of you in this audience came when I came here. She'll get there at some point, unless she chooses not to. And she had said, wow, they're telling me, Leo, you're not even from here. And I'm like, no, I'm not. I'm not from this earth. I'm not indigenous to this earth. I came here with a group of people that came here to help. That freaks out a lot of people, because but then she was like, wow, that's weird. I didn't know that about you. And then from the other side, they said to her, you do realize that more than 51% of you are aliens. And she said that out loud. And then I said, and then later on, I talked about it to her, and she said, I thought maybe they were just saying, well, those of us in the crowd that were on that day. And I'm like, no, they were referring to the entire planet. So the truth is, and then people say, well, how can that be? Okay. in 1981, when this started, the law of one started, the population of this earth was 2.7 billion humans on this earth. Today, 40 some odd years later, right? 42, 43, whatever that is, years later, we have 7.9 billion souls. Think about that, right? We've literally quadrupled, more than quadrupled, whatever five is, whatever centupled, whatever that is, the population of this earth in the last 45 years. That is the truth of the planet. Okay, so how is that possible? Well, if you're religious, you're going to say, well, that's the end times, and God has said that in the end times, the well of souls will be completely depleted, and all the souls will then walk the earth again. Well, that's actually very true as well, but it has something to do with, a lot more to do with what's going on spiritually than just that. On a low vibration, if that's the only knowledge you'll understand, then we'll tell you that, and you'll get that. You'll say I'm crazy, but you'll get the part that God has brought all the souls to life at the same time on earth, because it's close to the time of the rapture. Because that's a story for children that gets you on your way to ascension, to thinking about something about an immortal soul, and that you have one, and that there's going to be this time when you can graduate and go to a higher plane of existence. That's the beginning story for little children first learning this stuff. Okay. The truth of all of that is that this time was foretold, because it was known, because this is the normal cycle of how things happen. And when someone gets, when a group of people, a society, an entire race or species gets stuck, people, they then call out for help, and then souls come to help. In which case that you overwhelm the population with people who also come in and are asleep, because that's the only way we can do this, because that's the laws. That is the prime directive. If you've ever watched any Star Trek or Star Trek shows, in the history of that, they talk about that, the prime directive, where you cannot interfere in certain ways with the development of a society. So you have to come in here undercover. Why can I tell you this then? Because some people will say that. Well, then why can I tell you that if that aren't you breaking the law of one of the prime directive by telling me this? No, because of free will here, I can now say this to you, because some of the people are here have a high enough vibration to actually understand, I use that in my book in the distinction, understand in their soul what I'm saying, because there's enough people that are high enough vibration to actually get this information. So because of that, the collective can have it. So I can put it out there. Your choice is whether or not you have that. Your choice is whether or not you want to believe me. So when I say these things, there's going to be a large population of this planet, almost half of it, that's going to say that guy's crazy, he's made all that shit up, and they don't want to hear it. Those people are not of a vibration high enough to hear the words that are coming out of my mouth, and to sense the truth of those words and go, wow, okay, that's crazy. It sounds crazy, but I don't feel like he's lying. So that's why we can get away with that now. There's only certain things we can say. And there's times, if you're on here long enough, you'll hear me do this. And there's other people that have done this as well, that especially us Melchizedeks, those of us who have no veiling and we remember everything. When I try to tell you something that is too high vibration, and that the Earth's population as a whole is not risen to the area of me even being able to tell it, I will be stopped from the other side. They will not allow me to say this thing to you, whatever that thing is. And the more I try, the more the words from my brain my body won't say it. And if I continue to try and force it, the thought disappears out of my mind until I stop trying to force it. And when I stop trying to force it, and they know that I'm not going to immediately try to yell it out and blurt it out, then the knowledge comes back to me. So literally there's a forced veiling that happens if we try to go past where the society's ready for. But we can push it, and I do it a lot, and all of us do. We push it to the limit, and because we don't know exactly where, any second to second, where the population is, because it's always on an upward spiral. And the more people that come here that are more positive, and it doesn't matter whether you're doing anything to try and be positive, just you being positive changes the vibration of people around you, which changes the vibration of everyone and uplifts things. So from day to day, moment to moment, second to second, I don't know where that fits. It kind of goes up and down and up and down. So I could say something to you today, and tomorrow I'd try to say the same thing and it wouldn't work. But because I've said it before, I would feel the pushback a little bit, but be able to say that word and realize that the vibration dipped down a little bit. Those of us who are pay attention to that, we get really sensitive to that. And I know that some of that may sound crazy, right? So I would suggest to you, my friend, that you look into your body itself, Maddie. Look into your body itself and literally treat it like the temple. When Jesus talked about raising the temple, using the old term, not raising something to the ground meant destroying it, not raising it up. And that's why they would say raise it to the ground and then raise it up again. And he said that he was going to destroy the temple, raise it to the ground, and then rise it up again. That's why there's this distinction between raise and rise, by the way. Raising something meant to destroy it. For most of the human population until the 20th century. And then the rise, somehow people started saying raise when they meant rise. So he said they would raise the temple and then in 3 days rise it up again. And that was talking about his body as a temple, not the church itself. So everyone thought he was going to destroy the church and then raise the church again. And then he died and was resurrected. But there's a bigger meaning behind that I'm not going to go into right now. But literally, you need to learn your body and become your own advocate. Get in tune with this vessel that you're in, this avatar that you're in, because you can heal from anything. I don't care what it is. You can heal from anything. In this life, just since 2012, I have gone from literally having asthma, COPD, type 2 diabetes, to where, let's see, what else? I had low testosterone. Because of my low T, until I got on the shots, my body blew up and I gained 250 pounds or more. And I went from 300 pounds, which I was already pretty heavy, but I was very, very muscular because I worked out every day and worked in construction and maintenance. But I ballooned up to 486 pounds. I am now at 280 pounds. I went from having COPD tested and had x-rays and had multiple people looking at that to no longer having COPD, no longer having asthma. And when they do x-rays on my body, they can't they are like, how did your lungs regenerate? We can see the scars that were there. I no longer am type 2 diabetic. I'm no longer on the medication. Even though I've been on testosterone shots since I was 43, I am now 55, going to be 56, and my doctor is lowering my dose, and we're talking about stopping the shots because my body is now starting to produce testosterone on its own again. Okay. And these are not anything that are lies. These are things that my medical background proves that I have gone through and I have fixed in my own body. So I do this with botanicals. I do this with meditation. I do this with learning and taking care of my body, sleeping properly, eating properly, exercising properly, and using the right botanicals, looking into the body itself, meditation. I am a Reiki master teacher, doing all these things. I have fixed all of those things in myself, and I teach people how to do that. So you need to look into your body because we have to. We have issues. If you're a wanderer, you're going to have issues. You're going to be sensitive to something. I'm sensitive to light. I'm sensitive to the sun. My eyes are sensitive to light. I have to wear sunglasses when I go outside. I'm almost like an albino, but I don't look like it. But I'm almost like an albino when it comes to that. I'm very fair skinned with freckles. So I've always been sensitive to the sunlight in that respect. Even inside, some places the lighting is too much. My ears have become more sensitive. As you raise your vibration, these things become more acute. And if you learn your body and become in tune with it, you can fix it. Because once you start to ascend and you realize and gain access to knowledge, you have to realize this, guys out there. If you're all listening to me around the world, you have to realize that in the past, and Ra talks about this. So if you think I'm just making this up, you're going to hear this from everyone. You'll hear this in you. If you were a Christian or a Hebrew or a Muslim, then you have the same background and you'll know because it's all based on the same thing. In the past, in our direct past, the human race used to live for 1,000 years. And then all of a sudden there was this descent. Some people say it was when we fell. there, all of a sudden, we went from living 1,000 years, 800 to 1,000 years of age, to living to 35. That is directly related to the mindset of the human being. And Ra tells there was the reason was our affinity for bellicose or bellicosity. That means violence. That means self-serving, being in service to self. The more you're in service to self, the more that you are self-serving and warlike and low vibration, the shorter your lifespan. One, because of the environment that you create of killing, murdering, pillaging, and raping, right? But two, you don't live very long because the vibration is a low vibration, and that does damage to your body and causes your body to die faster. Gray hair and wrinkles is not something that was supposed to happen to the human condition. That is something that happened when we fell. Old age is a side effect, and our body sees aging as a disease. It doesn't see it as a natural phenomenon that's supposed to happen. So aging, getting old, becoming weaker, getting gray hair, getting wrinkles, your skin not working the way it's supposed to, those are side effects of self-service. And people who are angry and evil and mean and nasty and ornery, you'll find that those people have more health issues in their 30s, 40s, 50s, and 60s than people who are not. When people say, what was your secret? You're 102 years old today. You're going to find that person is in service to others, not in service to self. They love the world. They have a great outlook on life, and they lived fancy-free and carefree, and they ate well, and they didn't destroy their body. They didn't do things that harmed themselves. But you'll also hear them go, but I drank every day. Why is it that they can do all the things that today in the modern world tell you will destroy your body? This person got drunk every day and she's 102. She smoked cigars, for crying out loud. Why didn't she die of cancer? Why didn't she die of heart disease, lung disease? And she'll tell you, I don't know, but I'll tell you all that bullshit they're feeding you. It's because she didn't buy into society. She didn't buy the idea of I'm going to get old and die. She didn't buy the idea of it's just set and this is the way it is. She lived her life and took care of herself. And because of that, it staved off those things. And now she's very old. Okay. So that wisdom is what you need to realize. Why all of a sudden, why now in our society are we living longer and longer? They will tell you it has only to do with nutrition. It's only because we're eating better now. Well, if that's the case, then why are all these companies and vitamins trying to tell you that we don't eat very well and we don't get any vitamins? And why is it that the people who are into health will tell you the food that you're eating is designed to fucking kill you, especially if you're in America? Okay. It's because they know it's not just the food, but it is the vibration of the food you ingest. So they're trying to keep you away from growing your own food, cooking your own food, and they want you to buy the food that is processed because it's all low vibration, because it's processed by machines, by AI, and it has no vibrational value. So it has no nutritional value for your soul and for your body itself. It'll keep you alive. It tastes like shit, but you can live on it. But it keeps you unhealthy. Okay, so you have to learn that and have that knowledge. A buddy of mine lived here in America, and he went overseas and he spent time in Egypt and Africa. And he online, he said, why is that I've been eating pizza and bread all week and I'm losing weight while I'm over here? And one of us back here said to him, who was a nutritionist, because you have non-GMO food there, bro. Everything there is natural. And he was like, no way, man. That's cool. But so here's the truth of it. All the food that you eat here, he ate the same food and because he was partying, I'm overseas, I'm partying, he was eating what would cause him problems and get fatter in America, and he was actually dropping weight while he was there. Why? Because there was no additives, no preservatives, no steroids, and no shit in the food, and it wasn't genetically modified. And I have a buddy who lives in the Philippines, and he's an American, and he retired and moved to the Philippines and married a woman there, and he owns a bed and breakfast over there. His name is Bruce Cunningham. Some of you here listening to me know who he is. And he's thin as a rail. He's like 6 foot tall, and he weighs like 135 pounds, thin as a rail. And I'm like, what's your secret? And he says, I don't eat the shit food in America anymore. When I was over there and I was a trucker, I was fat. And because he was a truck driver, he drove semis over here and brought food or whatever, shipped shit around the nation. He went over there and he started living. He says, everyone buys organic here because everything's organic. They're poor. The country doesn't have enough money to buy all the shit that everybody has to preserve all their foods and to make their foods out of crap. So everybody eats organic there, and you go to the store and you buy the stuff you're going to eat in the next couple of days. You don't go to the store and buy a month's worth of shit in the store and store it in your house and leave bananas sitting on your countertop for a week before they fucking go bad. They get bananas and eat them in that day or two. So you only buy 2 or 3 bananas, because if you buy a bunch of bananas, you better be feeding a bunch of people or making bread. So literally, he says, everybody here's skinny, not because they don't have enough food to eat, but because they eat healthy, because they can afford the crap food that rich nations can afford to give to their people. So your nutrition is, and your intentions and your food is part of your longevity of your body. So if you're eating crap food your whole life, it's going to clog your arteries and kill you. If you're eating a lot of sugar and modified starches and modified food, when they have modified things like they say enriched wheat flour, that means sugar or salt or both. Okay, that's the truth of it. Look it up. So once you learn that and you start living your life accordingly, you can't help but change your life, and it changes for the better. There's a guy on television here who started working out. He was a newscaster. He still is here in Sacramento area. And he's a young guy in his late 20s, early 30s. And he said he hated vegetables. But they were talking about, he brought in some thing that was zucchini something. And they said it smelled really good. And he said, yeah, he said, when I was younger, just a few years ago, I couldn't stand vegetables. And then I started working out because I wanted to improve my body. And I started working out. And now I can't get enough of vegetables. He says, because I realize how much that does for the body. He says, I'm almost a vegetarian now because of eating of the fruits and vegetables that I need to fuel my body properly. And he says, I'll never go back. So my point here is that sometimes that it takes something to happen to us that changes our ways. And sometimes we start to learn that naturally as we start to age. We start saying, man, what do I got to do? I got to change something about myself. Once you start on that path, that's, again, a way of your ascension starting going forward. So if you guys are out there listening to my voice and you're like, well, I want to be a wanderer. Well, there's a 50% chance that you are, first of all, if you're a human on this planet currently, because of the influx of wanderers on this planet are so great. So there is a 50-50 chance. But if not, it doesn't matter. That's like when people say, I've been trying to get from a psychic who I was in a past life. And I'm like, I know about 3 or 4 of my lifetimes. And I could probably, if I concentrate, I know I could know every lifetime I have. But the truth is, that's not actually important. Those are done. Only thing I need to know from those lifetimes is, what did I learn that I set down for myself to learn? And did I learn what I was supposed to from the lifetimes? So learning about myself in the past is not focusing on myself now. It's the same as looking to the future and wondering where I'm going to be in 5 years. And you're constantly hoping and wishing you get someplace. Well, if you want to get there, this is why I teach life coaching. So I teach this to people. That's why we tell you, I want you to write up a life board, and I want you to tell me right now, where are you going to be in 6 months? Where are you going to be in 8 months? Where are you going to be in a year? Where are you going to be in 2 years? Where are you going to be in 5 years? I want you to write these down and say, this is what I have to do. Now, what do you have to do to get to that place? And I want you to write these things down and be honest with yourself. Don't give yourself more than you can do, but don't give yourself not enough. Make sure that you're going to be honest with yourself and say, will I actually do this? And then commit to that and say, I will do this thing and that thing. What do I need to do? So the first thing you have to do in your life is focus and say, what do I need to fix about myself? Now you're looking into yourself, and you're going to start working on your own immortal soul. Okay, so you're looking at yourself. I'm going to write another book. This one's going to be dedicated to self-help on a spiritual and life scale. The first one is the knowledge about, it's entitled The Reality About Reality, Returning to the Old Ways. And my next book is going to be about life coaching. It's going to be about fixing your life and fixing your spiritual life. And I'm going to describe what I'm describing to you now. So you're actually getting something that won't be out for over a year for free, that I charge $100 an hour for. I'm not kidding you. You can look around, ask people. So literally you have to do that on your spiritual self and on your physical self in your life. So what do you need to fix about yourself so that you can do these things? And then I teach you how to project and how your intentions and change your thought process about yourself and then you work towards small goals to achieve those goals. And as you achieve them, they make you feel better, and you realize I'm on path and I'm doing what I said I was going to do. And if you're getting kind of behind, you're like, I have to fix this now because I said I was going to be here by this time and I'm about to fail that. Why? Well, my ass got lazy. I stopped doing it back here. And I know that I did that. When you're honest with yourself like that, and you set goals that are attainable, that are not unattainable, and then you stick to the program, you will then have the determination to continue. And as you do that, you can then look back and go, man, look where I was a year ago and look where I am now. And I want to make sure that I set those goals in places where I tell you to stop and reflect. And that's why we tell you to journal and what's your mindset at the time, so you can then go back and read how you were thinking, your thought process when you first started, and now your thought process now. So I walk you through all of that. Anybody who's a good life coach will do that. And if they don't do those things for you, you need to change life coaches. I'll tell you that right now. Okay. So going forward, okay, you in the past, talking to Maddie again, if you're still here, brother, in the past, you had 2 heart attacks. You need to figure out what you need to do now to stop yourself from having another heart attack. Okay. So you need to look at yourself, and if there's changes that you haven't already made, there's probably changes that you have, and you're keeping yourself from heart attack. Check your foods, check your caloric levels, check your, what is my, fatty acids, all of that stuff to find out if you have plaque building up in your system. Cleanse all of that. Cleanse everything. Work on those things. Eat the right foods that help you cleanse. Eat the right foods that help you with energy. When you have more energy, you're going to be more motivated. It also clears your mind. When your mind is clear, free your mind. Here's this from a song: free your mind and your ass will follow. Although when they're not in concert, they say free your mind and the rest will follow. But that's the truth of it. Free your mind and the rest will follow. So you free your body, and that frees up and helps your soul become healthy because your mind becomes healthy. So you have to fix all of that. You can't just fix the body and not worry about your mind or your soul. You have to fix your body to help you fix your soul, and your soul starts first. Your soul's in charge, so your soul has to make the choice to fix the body and to fix the mind. And once you start to fix the mind, the body will let loose. The body only does what the mind tells it, and the mind only does what our fear-based ego shifts it into. So you have to get out of if you've been in the military, you know what I'm talking about. You're in survival mode. And you have to convince your mind and your ego to stop with the survival mode, so you can tell your body to relax and stop with the survival mode there. If you've ever been in combat, you know what I'm talking about, because you have PTSD or whatever they're calling it today. PTSD is what they did call it, because it used to be or you actually used to be stress syndrome, right? But then they changed it to something else. So whatever they're calling post-traumatic stress. It used to be post-traumatic stress syndrome, and then they changed it to disorder, whatever they changed those words to make it seem less aggressive. Whatever, when you have post-traumatic stress, if you've ever been in combat or in any situation like that, or been abused, or lived in a situation where you had an abusive family member, father, mother, uncle, aunt, somebody who abused you, it puts your body into a fear mode, and that will create you to have issues with your body. You might get overweight, you might become depressed. All of those things might happen to you. You have to fix those things. So you have to admit you're broken. It's just like going to AA, guys. If you've ever been an alcoholic and you go to AA, you have to admit that you're an alcoholic. You have to admit you're broken, and then say, I'm okay. I'm alive. So I'm a survivor. I've survived this. So now I have to tell the body it's okay. So once that's your dark night of your soul. And once you start to repair and heal, you have to become honest with yourself and say, I'm not a great person. I have problems, and these are my problems, and I know what's wrong with me, and I'm okay. It's okay that I have these problems because I'm a work in progress. Because anyone tells you that they're done and they're not a work in progress anymore is a liar, or they're full of ego and they're full of themselves. Because I just watched, and you guys should watch this, Angel Studios, the guys that did that movie with Jim Caviezel, that picked up that movie to put it on all around the world for people to see out there, when he was the movie where he went to the true story of trying to go around the world and get some of these kids that were abducted and put into the system of the sex trade. So that company has a television show that they just made, and it's called The Chosen, and it's about Jesus's life. And I'm on episode 4 or 5 right now, and I don't remember what channel it's on, but Google it. You should watch it. because one of the scenes that they put in the episode that I just watched, which was the one from last week, Jesus was camping by himself. It's before he had all of his followers. He has just returned to the area where the Hebrews are being occupied by the Jews. And the Jews are being occupied by the Romans, and no one knows who he is yet. And he's just starting to teach, and he's at night. And he's got his little tent set up, which is just a blanket with a stick propping it up and a blanket on the ground that he sleeps in. And he's got a fire there. And you can see the doubt in his face and the fear that is happening to him. And some would say Jesus would never do that. And I watched it. And I remember reading. Now, remember, I'm a minister. Okay. So I've studied religion for my entire life. Literally. So there are parts where Jesus, like on the cross, said, "Father, why have you forsaken me?" You have to realize that Jesus was a wanderer as well. And Jesus was in a third dimensional body. While he's in that body, he's subject to that body and everything that entails. So Jesus had many times in the Bible, if you read Matthew, Mark, Luke, and John, you'll see this many times where he had doubts himself and had that strife going on within him. So the Savior, if you're Christian and you believe that Jesus is the Savior, and even if you're not and you're a Jew, you're a Hebrew, Moses was your Savior. Moses was weak and went before God and said, "I don't have the words. I can't do this." And God had to say, "Moses, I will talk through you. I will give you the words that you will know what to say, because I will give them to you." So Moses, the Savior of all of the Hebrews, was afraid and didn't think he was up to the task. Muhammad, if you're a Muslim, was the same way. So you have to realize, even Marduk, if you go back as far as the Mesopotamians, Marduk didn't think he could do what he did. And he was told by people, "You are strong enough, you can do this." So you have to realize, and they show that scene where Jesus is almost crying and he's afraid at night and he's alone and he's looking up and he's praying to God, and you see the doubt in him and you see him praying, and then you see the doubt sort of fade away. But he had that moment. We are in these human bodies. No matter who you are in these human bodies in this third dimensional reality. That means you have the stuff that you have to go through because it's part of the body that you're in. So we have these things. So my point here is, no one is done if you are in this place. This is the third place from the bottom. It is the first place that you are sentient, that you are self-aware. So even if you come back to this body, like we have done, from an immortal on a low level, as just realizing what a wanderer is, we are subject to living in this body, and we are not perfect. So because of that, we too, when I first wake up in the morning, and it is when I'm re-entering this body, I doubt every morning when I wake up. When I'm first waking up, I have thoughts of doubt and fear that go through my mind. And in those few seconds that it takes, sometimes a minute or two, and sometimes longer, depending on how hard you slept, as you wake up, those fade away. And nighttime, it happens again, because nighttime is quiet and it's darkest, and you're in these higher level vibrations and your soul starts to pull out of your body. So when it's reintegrating with the body in a way, when you're tired, you're worn out, the body's worn out, you're going to have these moments where you're going to be doubting. That is fun and it's okay. It is absolutely normal. So no one teaches you that unless you're going to these programs or you're in churches, right? No one teaches you that. You're on your own and you don't know it. So you think you have to be strong all the time. And to be strong, you have to first be weak. That comes from Sun Tzu's the law of the art of war. To lead, you have to learn to follow. To be strong, you have to learn what it means to be weak. To live, you have to know what it means to die. So the only way that you can lift yourself up from any situation is you have to realize, you have to have that rock bottom moment. So my point here is, you have to become in tune, realize all of that. Become in tune with yourself, fix those things, be your own advocate. No one else is going to care enough. Some people in your life might be your advocate, but you have to literally know about yourself. You have to learn about yourself and learn that no matter what happened to you in the past, it's already done and it's over and you survived it. So don't let it linger on you. Whatever happened to you, you're raped, pillaged, attacked, killed, tortured, whatever. Ate shit food, got beat up all the time, picked on my whole life. You're still alive right now. That means you survived that. You're a survivor. So you can either choose to stay in that moment and be that victim that you were then, or you can choose to not be that victim anymore. The first step in avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence. So once you realize, wait, I'm not a victim anymore because I'm okay, I'm here. That's your first step. Then you have to say, I now have to convince my mind that I'm okay, because I have to convince the ego to shut the hell up about the fear. Then my mind will only do what I tell it to do, so it will shut up. But my mind is still attached to my body, so I have to tell my mind to tell my body to relax. So what do? This is what I tell people. You either join a religion and pray, or you learn to meditate, or you do both. Or you learn a spirituality. You don't need the religion itself, and you learn to meditate. You tell your body to relax. You take control of your body and you tell it, I am okay, I am fine. Look, I am exercising to get out my frustrations. So any fears that I have, I can take off from that. I'm eating the proper foods so that I have the right diet that makes me feel better, makes my body feel better. The body will relax. Then you can heal your mind. And you have to heal the mind, because the mind has recorded all of the atrocities that have happened in your lifetime. And it doesn't know that it's okay, because it records it as a recorder, just like as if you play back a recording on your phone or a tape or a video. It's going to give you the same exact thing over and over and over, because its job is to record it exactly what happened. Its job is not to go, okay, this happened 100 years ago, so we're going to give it to you with less emotion. That's not the body's job. It's not the mind's job. Your job is to realize that and not let it affect you as if it's happening to you for the first time. So that's why people would tell you in Dianetics, they do this, and they use this as a little trick to get you to believe that their way of thinking as Dianetics is the right way. And what they do is they hook you up to a lie detector test, which shows your physiological emotions happening in your body. And then they make you go and see your biggest fear or your biggest trauma. And they show you how your body reacts to that memory. And then they talk about it, and they convince your mind to relax a little bit, and that you're facing it and you're okay and you're fine. And then they hook you back up to the machine and have you look at it again. And then they compare and they go, look, what we just did, what our religion is doing for you, Dianetics, they're not trying to sell it as a religion, but it is. What our cult is doing is making you better. But all they're doing is they have the knowledge that once someone faces their fear and they realize, Reese, welcome. Namaste, my brother. Another Aussie tuning in. Once your body goes through and faces a fear and realizes that it's okay, the next time you face that very same fear, the emotion attached to that fear and that memory is going to be less. That's natural. Has nothing to do with Dianetics. It has nothing to do with the machine they're hooking you up to, because that's just a lie detector test. Okay? It has to do with the body and you and how the body reacts to remembering over and over what has happened. And as long as you're not reliving it and staying in that moment and reliving that emotion and allowing your body to think it's happening right now, once you keep that away from your body and tell your body it's not happening right now, it's okay. That's why when they use hypnotherapy, they tell you that you're seeing it through a veil. They use the veiling. You're seeing it through a veil like a movie on the screen, and it's not actually happening to you right now. You're just seeing it. They use that to give you the suggestion in your mind of the same thing that Dianetics does with the machine. Okay? So then you realize, oh, this isn't happening right now. So relax. You can relax and just watch it and tell me and describe it. We're not going to tell you that this didn't happen to you. This did happen to you, but it's not affecting you right now. And once you do that for the first time, that's you realizing the trap. The first step in avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence. You now know this event was having this effect on me, but it didn't this time. Why? Because I took control of the moment. I did this. Someone assisted me, but I did this. I took control of the moment and said, that's not now. That was then. So I can relax. I don't have to be afraid because I'm here. Then the next time you go and have that same moment come up, you're going to go, hey, you're going to faster without someone's help. You're going to go, wait a minute, this isn't happening now. This is something that happened then and I'm okay. And even if someone has to be there with you and grab you and hug you and tell you you're okay, you're all right, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay, and calm you down, which is what your parents did to you or should have done to you when you were a kid. That's why you feel like grandma, grandpa, mom, dad, whoever it was in your life who was that adult figure who was the one that made everything okay. That was the person who was the adult in the room who said, come here, you're fine, you're okay. And they calmed you down and convinced you that it's over now, you're okay. You have to become that advocate for yourself. Once you take that lead for yourself, then you can get through anything. I had panic attacks, or something I didn't tell you about. I don't talk about this very often. I've had panic attacks my entire life. I learned about panic attacks and the same process that I'm telling you right now. I would be at work and I would have a panic attack and I would want to run for my life and get in my car and go home, because you always instinctively want to go to the best place that you have and that is the most secure place for yourself. And so home, or I got to go see my mom. I got to call my dad. Whatever it is, when you have a panic attack, anyone who's ever had one, you know what I'm talking about. And I literally became my mother's advocate, and I still am to this day, who has Alzheimer's. And I would be taking her to the store and walking around the store, and I would have a panic attack. And I had to calm myself down because I am taking care of my Alzheimer's patient mother, who right now can't take care of herself, and I am in public, and I cannot have a panic attack. And I would literally, my body, and then I was molested as a child in a store. So every time I go to a grocery store and I go and stand in a line at a grocery store, I get claustrophobic and have a panic attack every single time, because I'm standing with people too close to me, and I was abducted in a store and molested in a grocery store. So for the rest of my life, I have been afraid to go into places where there are a lot of people in grocery stores. And I have had to learn how to deal with that. And I do, and I have. And I used to go in and stand there in cold sweat, wringing sweat. And I have PTSD from things I can't tell you about, of things that I did when I was in the Secret Service. Okay. So then I had that on top of that. And I don't like people being too close to me and being behind me. And when you're in line at a grocery store, the freaking aisle is only 36 inches wide. And they're 7 feet tall with wall-to-wall candy and shit they want to sell you while you're standing in line. The people are standing right behind you. When COVID happened, everyone had to be 6 feet away from me. I loved that because I didn't have somebody up my ass standing behind me, 2 inches behind me, trying to get me to hurry up, to where I thought at any second they're going to pull a knife out and gut me, right? Or stick it in my kidney or stick it in my brain case. So my instincts weren't to do, I would stand sideways with my back to that little freaking wall. And then I'd be wondering if somebody was going to come through the wall or be behind me. These are the thoughts that go through your head when you got spycraft going through your brain. Okay. And then when you've been molested in a store, then it's just the same. So you have to become your own advocate for all of these things to heal yourself, and realize the first step in avoiding a trap is knowing of its existence. Your ego is the fear that you're feeling. The body reacts in a way that you reacted to when it happened, and it only records it. So it's going to react the exact same way every time if you let it, until you're aware of it. And then you can tell the body, relax. It's not happening now. That was from before. That is the beginning of your healing, right? Welcome, Peter. Peter is you're not going to sleep tonight. Peter says every time he tunes in to watch me, because he's in South Africa, so he'll be going to bed soon, unless he just got up. I don't know what the time is there. I don't know but he always said he hated listening to me because I get him thinking and he can't sleep. Right? So literally, you have to become your own advocate. You have to realize that everything you eat, everything you do, whatever you put in your body, you hear the saying, we say it here in America, you are what you eat. That is the truth. So if you eat crap, you're crap. If you eat low vibration, you're low vibration. So if you're not exercising, you're not sleeping properly, you're doing whatever. I was an alcoholic. I quit drinking 1 year and 6 months ago now. But I drank from the time I was, 8, 7, 5, 3, when my grandfather was giving us alcohol as babies. I started drinking when I was a teenager, and I drank most of my life. I took a couple of years off when I was married and went back to drinking when I got a divorce. So I've been an alcoholic my entire life. And this is the longest since I started drinking 35, 40 fucking years ago, probably 40 years ago. This is the longest I've gone without having a single drop of alcohol of any kind. And that was in March of last year. So here we are so that's March to March, April, May, June, July, August. So that's 1 year and 5 months, almost 6 months. It'll be 6 months on the 2nd of September. 1 year and 6 months sober from alcohol. I also was addicted to, I was smoking pot too. I'm still have it. I just haven't smoked that in a long time, about a year. But I have some, and I can smoke it whenever I want. But I was addicted to crank, a bunch of other shit when I was younger on drugs, when I was a teenager. right? So I'm not coming from a place of somebody, that's my point, who didn't have PTSD, who didn't have trauma, who wasn't molested. I'm not coming from a place of somebody who is not religious. I'm not coming from a place of somebody who didn't have addictions. I smoked cigarettes. I'm 10 years now off of cigarettes. I smoked cigarettes from the time I was 8 years old until 10 years ago. So I'm coming from a place of addiction. I'm coming from a place of fear. I'm coming from a place of PTSD. I have lived those things, and I've done damage to my body. I almost cut my legs off at the knees in 2012. That's not a joke. And I'm still recovering my legs because of it, and my feet, and getting the nerve endings to refire in my legs. I have the nerve endings in my legs are so damaged from the flesh-eating bacteria that I had in my system at the time that I should have died from. That they were literally put me on the strongest antibiotics known to mankind and said, "Here, drawing lines around my knees, and if it goes above this or it doesn't go below this tomorrow." 8 hours from now, we're gonna talk about cutting your legs off at the knees, and that happened to me in 2012, and I still have my legs to this day, and I don't have much feeling in my left foot, and my right foot is about 45% no feeling. So when I drive my car, I'm driving by muscle memory more than I'm driving by feel and touch, literally. Okay, so I have had these issues happen to me that you guys are all going through in the world, and no one can ever say you don't know what I'm going through. Okay, because there's hardly anything that you can possibly imagine doing on this planet that I haven't done in this lifetime, except for I've never raped anyone in my life. So somebody who's recovering from that, I can say I don't know what you're going through because I've not raped someone. But just about everything else, I've done it. Okay, and I've overcame it, and I'm here to tell you that you can too. And people tell me you should be teaching, these recovery classes. My brother does that. And my brother is currently, by the way, I want to congratulate my brother, Jeff, who's not on here today. But if he tunes in and happens to listen to the show, I want to congratulate my brother, Jeff, who started going back to church about, 8-10 years ago now. And he's literally been in recovery and was teaching recovery to Christians. And leading, he and his wife leading groups that were taking married couples away from their families to have them go and do a retreat. He was teaching retreats. He is now enrolled in college, and he's going to get his bachelor's degree in theology. I'm very proud of him. Like his older brother, he's going to become a theologian. He's going to have a bachelor's degree, and it's going to take him a few years. I don't know how many years it'll take him. It's going to cost him $10,000. To do, but he just enrolled and he starts school this coming Monday. He's going to keep his job, what he's doing, and he's going to do it at night online. And he's going to an online college, and he's going to get his bachelor's degree in theology. So somewhere you will hear about my brother later on in the future, unless he decides not to work with his brother. You will hear his name. And if not, you might know who he is, because if you live in the Sacramento County area, you might learn who my brother is, because you might end up going to whatever he ends up doing as an endeavor going forward, whether he ends up teaching spirituality, becomes a minister or a priest or something, and which I can do now, but don't, because I don't believe in churches, not because they're evil, because they've been corrupted. 90% of the people in the churches are trying to help you. So I don't say to people that churches are not something they should be going to do, because some people need that structure, and I'm okay with that. But what I'm saying is that if you get to a place, some of us don't need that orthodoxy of the church. And some of us, I say this is a phrase I coined. You won't find this anywhere in the world. I said this first. And if you find it, show me. But I put it in my book. I literally say this, and I teach people this. Religion recruits you. Spirituality waits for you to find it. Okay. I have a reel out there, or a short, whatever you want to call it, that I posted, but I also put that in my book. Okay. So I'm not saying that you shouldn't go to church. I have been knighted by the Holy Roman Catholic Church. I am a Knight of Columbus in the Roman Catholic religion. I'm a minister in that church because of that. I went to the Universal Life Church in Phoenix, Arizona, and got my ministry through them. So I have the Christian minister title through that. I also have from the Jedi school, have the Jedi Master title in that religion, and I have a Merlin title, which isn't handed out very often to this day in the Druid religion of the old ways. It's not something that's orthodoxly taught. these days. You can't get the Merlin title, as far as I know. That you have to be chosen by another Merlin to get that, to be trained. My father was a Merlin who was taught as a Merlin, and he gave me that. It took me 19 years of my life to get. It wasn't something that you can just go online and get. So I'm not coming from a standpoint of somebody who is not a religious scholar, because I am. Okay. But I want to congratulate my brother who had the same training that my father gave and left the churches like I did, but he's made his way back to religion and spirituality, and he now wants to learn enough about theology, not just the Christian way, but the theology, that he's going to a seminary online, and he's going to get his bachelor's degree in theology. So that he might end up with a doctorate one day, and I'll have to bow to my brother's doctorate. He'll have the piece of paper that I don't have. Hopefully he'll realize. We'll probably have many conversations about that. Where that's like people that go to Harvard, Yale, and Princeton, saying that they have their $1 million that they paid for their law degree, for their doctorate in law, or their passing the bar, is somehow better than somebody who went to Diablo Valley Junior College in the San Francisco Bay Area, who had to pass the California bar exam, which is the hardest bar exam on the face of the earth to pass, by the way. Ask anyone who's ever passed any law exam anywhere on the planet. They'll tell you, don't go to California. That's the hardest one to pass. That's the biggest, the longest, and the hardest. So I tell anyone who says that, I went to Brown University, I'm the greatest lawyer at Princeton, the greatest lawyer on the face of the earth, and I'll say, so Cal Berkeley somehow has a different kind of law, what you're trying to say. So you could pass the California bar exam then, right now, the person who went to Cal Berkeley or UC Davis or one of the other schools, UCLA, one of the other California schools, you're going to tell me that they're somehow, they don't know, their $50,000 or their $100,000 that they paid for their law title is somehow less than your $1 million one? It's not. It's actually harder. They know more about the law than that person who paid that money. So hopefully I won't ever have to have that kind of theological conversation with my brother when he's going to say, I have a bachelor's degree. What do you have? Well, I stayed in theology and learned about theology when we were kids, and continued learning about every religion, philosophical and theological ideology on the planet, including history, military history, and all of their mythos. What have you done? So you have a piece of paper that some guy says you know what you're talking about, and I have the actual knowledge that says I know what I'm talking about. I hope I never have to have that conversation with him, but sometimes it happens when people pay for a piece of paper. They all of a sudden get an ego and say, I know more than I do because I have a piece of paper that proves it. And that's because you buy into the religion that is this society, to where you have to have that piece of paper. People come from other countries around the world, doctors and scientists, and they come to America, and the American population, they go, no. We don't acknowledge the fact that you're a nuclear physicist in this country until you pay us money to give you a piece of paper that says you have, or one of the European countries that we own, basically. That's why they'll accept it, because you've paid one of our colleges to give you an indoctrination. And that really pisses off some people that come from countries that can't afford it when they get here to pay for that, $1 million to get that piece of paper. But they can stay in America and they become janitors or bus drivers or whatever, and it frustrates them. That has to do with elitism more than we want to make sure you know what you're talking about. Okay, so now that I've burnt almost an hour not playing the law of one, going down all those roads, hopefully some of you aren't angry with me and go, I'm out of here. I left. Those of you who left because I didn't talk about the law of one and play the law of one, you should be playing this on your own anyway, and you're not here to hear it. So you shouldn't be listening to me because you don't want to know. You just want to hear what Ra says because you think you know what Ra is talking about. And I'm okay with that, because if you do, good on to you. But those of you who want to actually get a spiritual enlightenment, stay tuned. Let's play some more of Ra.
This continued for approximately 1,500 of your years. Meanwhile, the information concerning initiation and healing by crystal was being given. The one known as Akhenaten was able to perceive this information without significant distortion and for a time, moved, shall we say, heaven and earth in order to invoke the law of one and to order the priesthood of these structures in accordance with the distortions of initiation and true compassionate healing. This was not to be long-lasting. At this entity's physical dissolution from your third density physical plane, as we have said before, our teachings became quickly perverted, our structures returning once again to the use of the so-called royal or those with distortions towards power. 23.7 Questioner, when you spoke of pyramid healing, I am assuming that the primary healing was for the mind. Is this correct? Ra, I am Ra. This is partially correct. The healing, if it is to be effectuated, must be a funneling without significant distortion of the INS tearemings through the spiritual complex into the tree of mind. There are parts of this mind which block energies flowing to the body complex. In each case, in each entity, the blockage may well differ. First, however, it is necessary to activate the sense of the spiritual channel or shuttle. Then whether the blockage is from spiritual to mental or from mental to physical, or whether it may be a random and purely physical trauma, healing may then be carried out. 23.8 Questioner, when you started building the pyramid at Giza using thought, were you at that time in contact with incarnate Egyptians and did they observe this building? Ra, I am Ra. At that time we were not in close contact with incarnate entities upon your plane. We were responding to a general calling of sufficient energy in that particular location to merit action. We sent thoughts to all who were seeking our information. The appearance of the pyramid was a matter of tremendous surprise. However, it was carefully designed to coincide with the incarnation of one known as a great architect. This entity was later made into a deity, in part due to this occurrence. 23.9 Questioner, what name did they give this deity? Ra, I am Ra. This deity had the sound vibration complex, Imhotep. 23.10 Questioner, thank you. Then as an overall success, what can you tell me about the relative success of the pyramid in any way at all? I understand that it was the pyramids for the purpose were basically unsuccessful and that they didn't produce the rise in consciousness that you'd hoped for, but there must have been some success. Can you tell me of that? Ra, I am Ra. We ask you to remember that we are of the brothers and sisters of sorrow. When one has been rescued from that sorrow to a vision of the one creator, then there is no concept of failure. Our difficulty lay in the honor/responsibility of correcting the distortions of the law of one which occurred during our attempts to aid these entities. The distortions are seen as responsibilities rather than failures, the few who were inspired to seek, our only reason for the attempt. Thus, we would perhaps be in the position of paradox in that as one saw an illumination, we were what you call successful, and as others became more sorrowful and confused, we were failures. These are your terms. We persist in seeking to serve. 23.11 Questioner, you probably can't answer this question but I will ask it now since we are in the area that I think this occurred in. I feel this somewhat of a duty of mine to ask this question because Henry Puharich will be visiting me later this month. Was this entity involved in any of these times of which you have just spoken? Ra, I am Ra. You are quite correct in your assumption that we can speak in no way concerning the entity Henry. If you will consider this entity's distortions with regard to what you call proof you will understand/grasp our predicament. 23.12 Questioner, I had assumed before I asked the question that that would be the answer. I only asked it for his benefit because he would have wished for me to. Can you tell me what happened to Akhenaten after his physical death? Ra, I am Ra. This entity was then put through the series of healing and review of incarnational experience.
Talking about Akhenaten now. He said Akhenaten. didn't pronounce it properly, Akhenaten. But then again, who knows? Maybe the Egyptians pronounced it Akhenaten, and we say Akhenaten these days. Maybe it's just my English or my American accent, right? So talking about the process that he's going through right now. I'll continue and let Ra talk, but that's the process that everyone goes through when you die. You go through the healing and then the reflecting stage where you talk to your guides and yourself and reflect on your life. And I referred to this very early on when I was talking about past lives. That life is over. And so the life that you have that's over, you're reflecting on it. Did I learn what I'm supposed to have learned? Did I learn what I wanted to learn in this particular lifetime that I was just now I'm coming out of? And then you will plan your next lifetime if you still need to come back to learn more things. Let's let Ra continue.
Which is appropriate for third density experience. This entity had been somewhat in the distortions of power ameliorated by the great devotion to the law of one. This entity thus resolved to enter a series of incarnations in which it had no distortions towards power. 23.13 Questioner, thank you. Can you tell me what the average lifespan was at the time of Akhenaten for the Egyptians? Ra, I am Ra. The average lifespan of these people was approximately 35 to 50 of your years. There was much, what you would call, disease of a physical complex nature. 23.14 Questioner.
See, so also depending on the time that you lived, right? There was either more or less disease in whether or not you had. So there is some longevity that has to do with your technology. In the modern day, we have penicillin, we have all these other things that we can help ourselves with to live longer. So yeah, the human race should be living longer because we're supposedly eating better. If you are eating better and we have the technology to keep us around longer, we should be living longer. But we should also be able to live longer if we take care of our soul and our body. We can live even longer. There are people on this planet that take certain botanicals in certain countries, especially the Chinese and Japanese people who live. Both of those countries currently are the longest living people on the planet. They live to be hundreds of 100 years old, 130, 140, 150, 160 years old. And when people hear those stories, they go, "That was such a lie. That didn't really happen." But you can look that up, and it is true that it has actually happened. There was a guy that was a Chinese guy here in America that got hit by a car, and I think they tell the story around the world, but he got hit by a car, and they were trying to figure out his age, and they looked at his driver's license. And they said, "This can't be right. His ID has him at 173 years old." So they called his family and said, "We're trying to figure out what age to put on his death certificate that your grandfather just died. And his ID says that he's basically 174 years old. That can't be possible." And they're like, no, he's 174. And they're like, "What? No, nobody lives to be that long." "No, that's not my grandfather. That's my great grandfather. And he's 174 years old. And what has happened? He's dead. You say he's died." And so they found out. And they were literally, all these people in the family were like, "No, that's really how old he is." Society doesn't want to believe that because, the average age used to be so small. The average age in the United States of America during the signing of the Declaration of Independence was 35. Okay. The average life expectancy of the average colonist in America in 1776 was 35 years of age. The average age of the actual people at the time in the colonies in 1776 was 21. The average signing member of the Declaration of Independence was 22 years of age. That's because some of them were 15. Okay. And I put up some of those names and their pictures to show you as a reel or a short. If you go back far enough, you'll see that where I show some of the founding fathers of the United States and when they signed the Declaration of Independence, and it shows their age. And you would be surprised that most of them, in fact, almost all of them, were under the age of 30. All the people who signed, all the founding fathers who signed the Declaration of Independence was between 12 years of age, okay, and 28 years of age. There's not one who signed it who was older than that. They all lived to be older than that. Most of them. Some of them died during the Revolutionary War, but most of them lived to be older than 35. Some of them lived into their 70s, which is very unheard of back then. But in the same sense, George Washington was 6'1" and considered a giant because the roofs of a house were only 6 feet tall and he had a duck to walk in his own house. Nowadays, they make them 9 feet tall because we've grown so much taller in the last 260 years or so, 250 years, that we've literally had to raise the ceilings from 6 feet to 7 feet. And I grew up in a house that had 7-foot ceilings that was built in the 50s or 60s in the United States, to now making them 9 feet tall. The door threshold is now 7 feet tall because we're getting so much taller just in that short period of time. So it's not just our nutrition that's gotten us, because it's worldwide, right? And so people are getting taller, not just because of good nutrition, but you'll find that those people who live longer and live older are spiritually minded people. And people who are nasty, evil, and cantankerous die of things like strokes and cancer and heart attacks at a younger age. Rarely do you hear someone go, "Yeah, that grandma, she just turned 100 years old and she's the evilest woman I've ever met in my entire life. She hated everybody, beat us all the time." You don't hear that. You don't hear that about people. When you hear that, you hear usually stories about somebody that are lies when they get up there and go, "Buck was a great guy. Everybody loved him." And you go, "No, Buck raped my sister and beat me and my brother, tortured my mother all the time, killed a few people, we're pretty sure, and got away with it, and was just a nasty, evil man his entire life. Who the fuck is this guy telling this great story about my dead father?" right? So that's usually how that happens. Those people, that's why but they say only the good die young. The truth is that if you could be a good person and still not do good things. I have a buddy of mine who was 2 years younger than me that died 10 years ago of colon cancer because he never ate any fruits or any vegetables because he hated them and said, I'm a meat and potatoes guy. I don't eat fruit and vegetables. He had colon cancer and he died of cancer when he was 44, 43. Okay. And it sucked for him at the end, right? He was a great person. He was not an evil soul, but he died young because he didn't feed his body properly. He didn't take care of his body, and his body died out from under him. Okay. So let's get back here to Raw and take a few more questions. Let's go. Yeah. Right. As we would say, get up there, doggy. Yeah. There's my American coming out.
Can you tell me of the reasons for the disease? I think I already know, but I think it might be good for the book to state this at this time. Ra, I am Ra. This is, as we have mentioned before, not particularly informative with regard to the law of one. However, the land you know of as Egypt at that time was highly barbarous in its living conditions, as you would call them. The river which you call Nile was allowed to flood and to recede, thus providing the fertile grounds for the breeding of diseases which may be carried by insects. Also, the preparation of foodstuffs allowed diseases to form. Also, there was difficulty in many cases with sources of water, and water which was taken caused disease due to the organisms therein. 23.15 Questioner.
Sorry, I'm reading your guys' chat comments. I got to tell the world about that. Right. Denise says, I don't have to worry about tall ceilings. I'm only 5 feet tall. Right. I come from a tall family. I'm the shortest man in my family. I'm 6'1", and I'm the short one. My father was 6'1". I had an uncle that was only 5'8". He's gone now, as well as my father. My other two uncles were 6'3" and 6'5". My younger brother is 6'5". My sister, one of my sisters, I have 4 sisters older than me. Most of them have either 2 sons or a son and a daughter, or 2 daughters. All of the women in my family, my sisters, are all but one are all 5'9" to 5'10", 5'11". One is 5'4". She's the run of the litter. That's Jennifer. All the kids are the same. All the girls are between 5'7" and 5'10", 5'11". All the men are taller. My younger brother is 6'5". His son is now 6'5", almost 6'6". One of his sons, my sister, one who was here today, her son is 6'4". So I'm a runt compared to my family at 6'1". And you guys are talking about that. And Maddie says, I'm 5'3". Right. Penny says 5'1". That's hilarious. Rick, 5'9" or 8. Rick, you're tall compared to them. Right. But I've shrunk. I used to be 6'1". I'm probably, as I've hit my 50s and the bone marrow starts to settle, I'm pretty sure I've lost an inch. So I'm probably 6 foot now instead of 6'1", or I'm getting a little under 6 foot. I haven't measured myself lately, but as you get older, Rick, you're going to lose about an inch or 2. It just happens. When your bones get less dense, the cartilage starts to not need to be so dense, and your body shrinks up a little bit in height. I think that's hilarious. But your height just has to do with your genetics and whatever. And then Rick said something about I've always been drawn to shorter women. I'm drawn to taller women. That might be the Viking in me. I dated a girl who was taller than me. Her name was Anne. She was 6'2", blonde hair, blue eyes. Half Viking, half Celt. So it was northern and southern Viking. Both my wives were shorter than me, but they were both 5'7", which is pretty tall for a female in this country. It's about average for Americans, but pretty tall for the world, because the average. You have to realize that too. People don't realize that. If you look at real true armor, if you live in Europe, you know what I'm talking about. You've seen real armor, and it's all between 5'2" and 5'4", 5'5". Because the people who wore that armor hundreds of years ago were between 5'2" and 5'5" on average. And the Vikings were all 5'9" to 6 foot. So they were considered giants. And then they were Clydesdales. And, come on, a Clydesdale has you sitting up 6 feet in the air. Those things are huge. They're the tallest horse on the earth. So you put a 6 foot tall human being on a horse that's already 6 foot tall. He's now 12 feet in the air, or not quite 12 because you're not standing up on it, but you're literally he's like 8 feet in the air, 9 feet in the air to the top of his head. And then if he swings some sword above that, it's coming down on top of you and literally would scare the bejeebies out of you if you're only 5'3". And you're looking up at this guy, and then he gets off the horse and he's 6 foot. Right? They considered, like I said, George Washington, people were afraid of him. He looked like a giant. He was only 6'1". And they saw him as a giant because the average American male at the time was 5'4". So he was 6 inches taller, 7 inches taller than the average man. And so think about that. What if Shaquille O'Neal, right, who is, the man is almost 7 foot if he's not 7 foot, and have him literally go back in time just to the 1960s in America, take him back to the colonial days or go back in Europe at the same time, and they would be scared of him because he's this humongously giant black man, scare the piss out of everybody. This Moor, that's what they were calling back then, this Arab is 6 foot tall from Africa. They'd be scared to death. Okay, I'm going to be getting off here. I think I'm going to get off here and stop early this week only because I still have to cook dinner. And I have another obligation to talk to somebody after this. So I need to get off of here and still have time to be able to do my dinner tonight and cook that. But my day's been crazy and hectic so far. That's why I'm going to cut it down an hour. I only go from 3 to 5 is 2 hours. So that's good. So we'll stop here. We'll pick up here next week and we'll move on from there. And I'll pick up next week. My camera's not working. Don't know why. I'll have to hook up my camera next time. If I need a camera, I have them. So just so you know, anybody out there who's wanting to have me on your show, fear not. I have another computer and I have cameras I can attach to this one. So I can still be on camera for people to look at my ugly mug, which I'm currently starting to grow my beard back. For those of you who like me without my beard, well, those of you know I have the beard, the wisdom beard on my chin, but I'm growing my full beard back. And a lot of people don't like that because I look like an old man when I do that. But you know what? I like it. It's going towards the holidays. I'm going to grow the Santa beard. And if you guys don't like it out there in the world, turn the channel and don't look at me with my full white beard that I'm about to grow, right? My family, some of them love it. Some of them hate it. My friends, some of them, they go, oh my God, I love you with a long beard. Some of them go, you look homeless. Some of them are like, hey, you look like Santa Claus. Yeah, I get that all the time. I do look like Santa Claus. Why? Santa Claus was a Viking. I'm a Viking. I look just like Santa Claus. And then when I'm overweight, I look even more like Santa Claus. And you'd be surprised how many people go, do you play Santa Claus? Yeah, it's been a tradition in my family. My uncle played Santa Claus, gave me his Santa suit. I played Santa Claus for about 10 years. I passed it forward and gave my Santa suit to somebody else. But I still, you guys, there's pictures of me out there. I still, so I'm going to look like Gandalf again. For those of you who maybe don't like that beard on me, too bad. I like it, and I decided to go without it for a long time now, for over 2 years now. Actually, a year and a half, because when I got out of the hospital, I had a long beard, just the goatee, and so I shaved it off. And I went a year and 6 months without it, and then just started growing the chin beard back in the last 3 months. And now I said, screw it. Don't care what people think of me anymore. If they want to look at me and go, I don't believe that guy, he's got a beard, that's just a joke. That's just something that they teach you to lie to you, to get you to not trust someone with a beard. Because what do they have as a wise sage or a wise wizard? Always a man with a white beard that's long. So they don't want you having that because they don't want people looking at you like you're a wise person. So they try to tell you, well, no, the consensus are that if you have a beard or a mustache, people think you're lying, because they don't want you to have a beard or mustache, because people actually don't think you're lying when you have a beard and mustache, unless you're trying to deceive them. And then that has nothing to do with you having the beard and mustache. But they want you to believe that because they don't want you having the beard of wisdom. Okay. And I've always had the long beard on my chin because that's a Jedi thing. And not very many people recognize that unless they are a Jedi. And I had one guy say, you're a Jedi, aren't you? And I said, how do you know that? He says, you have the Jedi beard. And that's just become synonymous. Those of you who are African, that's the beard of wisdom that the Africans had, and all the Egyptians would put on even a fake one. When they had the pharaohs, would have the fake beard. If they didn't have a real beard, they put on a fake beard to show you that ruling class had the beard. That's the beard of wisdom. And some people that see me from those religions will then say, oh, you have the beard of wisdom. Some people call me a sage, or they realize I'm a druid, and then some people see that as the Jedi way, but it's a druid Jedi way. And I've decided that the wizard beard, as you guys call it, the one that some people call a homeless beard, is the beard of my true spirituality. and the old ways. So I'm going back to that, and I don't care what anybody thinks. So if anybody out there looks at me and goes, "You look better with the baby face. You're far more attractive." If I were trying to get a wife and wanted a wife that only saw a man without a beard and would never let me get a beard, you're absolutely right. I would shave off my face, and I would go after that superficial woman who only superficially wants to be with me because of how pretty I look. And then I would have to be superficially pretty and only go out with her because she's just as pretty as I am. Otherwise, I couldn't have an ego and be a self-serving and love myself, because I have to have somebody who's just as pretty as me but can't be prettier than me, right? And then I can walk around and do the thing that you see Thor doing every now and then. I am prettier than this man. And that's the ego of someone. So I don't care anymore. I like the beard. I'm going to grow the beard, and I'm going to keep the beard, and I don't know how long I'll have it. And if you ever see me shave it off, it's because I get together with a woman who says that beard needs to go, and I love her enough to sacrifice my beard. Otherwise, you're going to see me with a long beard. Get used to it. All right, guys, I love you guys. And some of you are like, what does that matter, bro? I'm just telling you because you haven't seen me on camera for a while, and I'm a week and a half into not shaving. So don't be surprised the next time you see me on camera somewhere when all of a sudden you're going, where the hell did he get that beard from? He had the hair on his chin, and now he's got a full beard. Has it been that long? It might be. My shit grows fast. All right, guys, have a great night. Maddie, I'm glad to see that you popped back in. Don't believe a word I've said. Assume that everything I told you is my opinion only and I lied to you, and go down that road and look into everything that I've said and learn for yourself. That's how you're going to go down that road and go down that rabbit hole. And knowledge is wisdom, and wisdom is ascension. So don't trust me. Don't trust anybody. Don't believe me. Don't believe anybody. Don't believe anything someone says to you. Question everything, and you will find yourself ascending, because you cannot learn. You cannot read, you cannot learn and not. You have to only read junk that's not teaching you, and not reading and not learning. And that is the trap of the mind. So if you're superficial, you're not going to be here right now because you didn't listen this long. So those of you that are still here, you're here because you're not, and you're trying to figure out what's going on in the world, and you're trying to figure out what's going on within yourself. I am here for that purpose. It is why I am on this planet. It is why I'm here in this lifetime. And I am not the only one. There are millions of us and billions of us around the world that are here to help guide you. And I am working with global ambassadors. Literally, we're putting together an ambassadorship, and we're going to call it, so far, unless we change it, the Global Ambassadors of Light. And this is from the coalition, the Orion Coalition of Light, that we are rolling out to the world. That our coalition is working with other coalitions that we have been working with for a very long time behind the scenes. We're rolling ourselves out to you guys. I'm not afraid to tell stories. I'm not afraid to tell people who I am anymore. I have been hiding for most of my life, and so have some of the people that I'm working with currently, that some of you in the crowd that are doing the same thing. And it is because it is now time that this population of this earth is ascended to a level to which they can, those of you who can, will not be afraid to know that 51% of the population of the earth currently is not from here. Their souls came from somewhere else, but they're born into these bodies just like you, just like me, just like everybody else. We're here legally. And then some of them are walk-ins who the body wasn't originally belonging to the soul, and they came in and took over for the person that was here. Some of the people who think they're walk-ins are not sure. They don't realize they're not, that they're actually wanderers, but that's okay. They'll wake up to that as time goes. But there are some people who have channeled into that. And some of you out there in the world hearing my voice, if you've made it this far, mostly you're not going to turn me off unless you just popped in and then you think I'm crazy. All right, guys, I love you. Have a great night. I will see you next week. I don't have any shows planned for the mid part of the week, but next week, but I'm not sure because I'm still working with Jacqueline Taylor. We're still going to film another episode to her show that airs on Saturdays. I don't know what she's airing tomorrow, but there's going to be, I know that I got a link to it. So there's a good conversation that is happening of a show that is on her show. You should check out on YouTube. That's I think it's called Weekend with Jack. Weekend with Jack, JAC. It's Jacqueline Taylor. And you can find a link to her thing on my page and on my a wallpaper. There's one that will take you there to her channel that for the episode that we did, the 2 hours that we did, that we finally got it edited and put back together and popped up for you guys to listen to last Saturday. She's going to have another episode on this coming Saturday, tomorrow. If you're in Australia, it'll tonight or tomorrow morning when you're sleeping still. You haven't gotten up yet. Okay, guys, I love you guys. Have a great night. Have a great weekend wherever you are in the world. This has been Orion Rising. I am your host, Leonard O'Neill. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, or good morrow, depending on where in the world you are tuning into the show.